Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer. I'm your host, Mark, and today we got a fun episode about Tyranids, and we got two of my homeboys joining me today. We got Court, welcome.
Hey, what's going on? Good to be here. And I noticed that Logan's face was frozen for the first 10 seconds, which was hilarious, by the way. So
always frozen in a good spot too, like he's
it was
just
so good.
waiting to accept something from you.
Oh, yeah, rad to be here.
You guys are degenerates.
We also got Logan. Hey, welcome.
Hey, glad to be here. Kinda. I just got bullied.
Mom, they're internet bullying me again. Somebody help.
I get to bully Logan in real life, so it's okay. It's a little different.
I carried
That is
you in
nice,
that Game
yeah.
of Thrones game we did. So I know what you're
Okay,
talking
so
about.
Logan and I played A Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game, one of our favorite games, last Thursday. And now let's face facts, you did carry the fucking team. We did 2v2, and I killed one thing in the whole game, and that was it.
Yeah, but just think of it this way. If it wasn't a team game, he wouldn't have even been able to play at all without you. So, like, without that
That's very
second
true.
player, no playing at all.
I was, I'll take the Scottie Pippen. You could be Michael Jordan in that scenario.
Works for me. It was fun, though. It was definitely a team effort because he acted as chaff and just ate all the violence, and I just scored all the points we needed to win. I think
It
I
was so
lost
good.
one model the whole game, but it didn't matter because I owned the objectives.
Yes, you did. It was rad.
Yeah, those are some cool minis. I haven't played that game, but I've seen the minis, and yeah, they're fun. They're fun looking.
Yeah, it's a good time.
It's interesting, like going from like 40K where it's like heroic scale typically to the more realistic scale where the swords are the correct size and they're not like, you know, super thick or super long. Yeah, it's fun working with the right scale models.
And it's nice not to have to glue anything together, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
the only reason I even got into it was because the models were pre-built and I didn't have to do anything.
Lazy bastard.
That's one way to live your life.
Dude, I have so many hobbies. I've got sprues right here. I have so many things to build. I do not have time to start another hobby with buildable models. I mean, I've got stuff here too. Look, I've got Zoids over here. I've got stuff everywhere.
It's coming out of the yin yang.
It
Yeah.
really is.
It's all over the place. Nice. Well, today on today's episode, it's not about Game of Thrones, although come check out my Game of Thrones podcast called... No, just kidding.
I got really excited for a moment. I was like, oh, are we debuting something?
Just fucking around. No, I'm a 40K guy through and through. People ask me about other topics, and I kind of just go blank face, like, Emperor good? Is kind of my typical response.
Which
Yeah, but
codex
does
is
it have
that in?
Space Marines?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, today's episode is about Neuro-nids of the Tyranids, and that's a term that I coined there, and we'll see what you guys think of the term Neuro-nids. But basically, they're psychic Tyranids that have been recently released in the Leviathan 10th edition box set. It would be cool to kind of dissect them, what makes them different, why they came out, why did they evolve this way, all those kind of fun questions. But before we get to that, let's do some quick housekeeping. Come check out our merchandise on Redbubble. We sell t-shirts, we sell fucking dice bags, mugs, stickers. I'm still waiting for everyone to just go buy some stickers and then do a mass propaganda campaign where you slap Lorehammer stickers on all your city bus stops. I think that'd be fun. Guerrilla marketing.
Don't challenge me.
Go buy some stickers.
I will do it.
Get after it. I'll even
All
pay
right.
for the first 100 stickers for you.
All right, I'm down. Cool.
Okay, nice. A little vandalism.
Never hurt anybody. Art.
Never.
It's art. Oh, man. Well, if you guys are digging the show, and I know you are because you're listening, please join the Imperial Tithe. And by doing so, you directly support the show and keep us going. And we really appreciate all of you guys who are Imperial Tithe members. And if you're not, check it out. Ad-free version of the episodes, $2.50 a month. That's it. If you would like the video version to see our beautiful faces, that's $5 a month. That's it. It's fantastic. And it comes with even more bonuses. Logan, tell the people what they get.
Yeah, if you're at the $5 tier, you get to come hang out with us during the recording in our YouTube chat. You're part of the live chat. You get to engage with us and correct us when we're wrong, which is all the time. And at the end of the episode, you can call in and join us and tell us how wrong we are. So it's pretty great. Join us at $5 a month to come hang out.
Yeah, super fun. Yeah, I don't know who would pay $5 to see our face. I feel like that should be the other way around, but that's not how this works. Go join the Patreon.
We're going to pay $5 to see the audience's face.
No. We should have to pay them to look at our faces.
Yeah. It's like, why are you paying to see the audience?
Let me look at you, Grim and Liar, in the chat there. Come on, I'll give you $5. Just send me nudes. Come on. All right. Final little housekeeping thing. Yo, you boys heard of Rick Priestley before?
What? Yes. Legend.
Yeah.
Legend.
The master himself.
Legend. Yeah, we'll give you a quick rundown. Rick Priestley is one of the co-creators of Warhammer Fantasy and 40K. He was mostly like a rules designer from my understanding, but he definitely dabbled in the lore. And I just imagine him and the other co-creators in a basement somewhere, drinking Mountain Dew, eating Doritos, and chatting lore. Do you think this would work? Do you think this? What about this? But anyways, all that to say, Rick Priestley has humbly accepted an invitation onto Lorehammer.
That's awesome.
That's some shit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Going to be such a great episode.
Yeah, I'm typically not like an interviewer type person. So, if you guys have questions you want me to ask him, come join the Discord and you can PM me your questions and then help me become a better interviewer. Because, yeah, typically that's my style is more make some dick jokes as opposed to try to get to the bottom of somebody's personality,
But in your defense, you guys, in episode 100, interviewed Graham McNeil, author Graham McNeil. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Episode 100? Yeah. That was big.
Yep.
I remember listening to that episode.
Yeah, that was super fun. But back then I had Sweet Boy Eric with me, and he is a master with people. I could just sit back in my chair and listen to those two talks and throw in the odd little thing. But no, I'm super hyped to be able to talk to Rick Priestley. And, one guy in our Discord, he ran into Aaron Dembski-Bowden in a game store the other day. And he's like, you got to get on Lorehammer.
ADD.
So I'm not promising anything. Yeah, I'm not promising anything with that guy, but just know things are in the works. And if you have a favorite author you want us to try to interview, just reach out to him. Like, I got a hold of Rick Priestley because my wife messaged him on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and was like, hey, my husband has a big podcast. You want to come talk to him about it? And he said yes. So it really doesn't take too much to get a hold of these guys. You just got to get their contact info. So if you have an author you want me to try to interview, I would love to just try to get that process rolling.
That's exactly how I'm here. I bugged you. I came out of the blue. I was like, hey, do you want to join my podcast?
Literally, man, that's all it takes. I'm like, yeah, talk about Warhammer. I'm fucking in.
Yeah. Closed mouths don't get fed.
Cool. So yeah, definitely look forward to that. I think it's coming out, or we're interviewing him next week. So go join the Discord real quick to get your questions in before we interview him. But yeah, super excited to do that. Alrighty, on to today's topic of the Neuro-nids of High Fleet Grendyllus. Now, the Neuro-nids, that moniker is not actually a thing. We have Neurogaunts, we have Neurotyrants, we got a bunch of neuro creatures, but the whole Neuro-nids category is something I kind of was coining with this episode to try to sum everything together. When we get to the actual list of creatures, there's some that are like very clearly Neuro-nids, like I said, the Neurogaunt. There's some that are Neuro-nids, but you wouldn't think it, like the Norn Emissary. And then there's others that are just an honorable mention, like the Malceptor, the Psychic Carnifex, where I'm like, that should fucking be a Neuro-nid in my mind, but it just didn't quite make it into that release or whatever. So it's going to be fun to see all these different kind of things. So let's...
Yeah, I was going to say from a tabletop perspective, they're easy to spot too, because they're all the ones that have their brains exposed.
Yeah.
I painted the Malceptor once upon a time, and I loved painting the brain just like this glowing, pulsating, purpley blue. It was very fun. But yeah, that's kind of the defining features. If you're playing tabletop, looking at the models, just look for those brains, and you got yourself a Neuro-nid.
Mm-hmm.
Neuro-nids are psychic Tyranid organisms, engineered to the extent of the Hive Mind's control, amplifying synaptic power and adapting to diverse threats through their devastating and ever-evolving psychic abilities. Tyranid psychic powers are an unrelenting force of nature, born from the collective will of the hive mind, and their efforts are as alien as they are terrifying. Unlike the warp-based sorceries of other species, Tyranid psychers tap into the raw, unfathomable power of the hive mind itself, channeling its infinite hunger and malice into devastating abilities. These psychic powers warp the very fabric of reality, inducing terror, chaos, and despair across the battlefield. So let's just, before we really dive into them, let's give a little context. We're going to bring up the hive mind real quick, synapse creatures, and the shadow and the warp. These are kind of the big three things that we're going to need to understand. And I know we've talked about them a bunch of times, so we're just going to do a little recap. We'll start with the hive mind. The hive mind is the gestalt collective consciousness of the entire Tyranid race, a psychic embodiment of the Tyranid's instincts and racial imperatives to devour and destroy. The hive mind is not a single mind capable of small conscious thought the way humans' minds work, but instead it is a grand amalgamation created from the psychic presence of untold billions of Tyranid creatures. It is the nightmarish and unfathomable intelligence that allows Tyranids to coordinate and adapt as if every Tyranid creature is merely a part of a single massive organism, one that is utterly focused on consuming all other life. The hive mind, oftentimes people might think it comes from a specific source, like there might be a hive mind creature bug out there. But, every time we read about it, it's pretty clear that this is a collective consciousness of all the Tyranids that kind of combines and forms this thing. It's not just like one bug out there running the race.
I think we joked last time we talked about it. It's kind of like the cloud in current IT architecture. There's a bunch of different pieces to it, but it can act as one thing for everybody. Especially with, I think it's a Swarm Lord, because it dies and then they can rebuild it and it gets its old memories back from the hive mind.
Yeah, the cloud is a very good, tangible, easy way to kind of understand it. Everything's constantly being uploaded to it. You can download stuff back. That's a great kind of way. It's kind of always up to date.
Yeah.
The next little piece here is the synapse. Synapse is the Tyranid psychic power which unites all the Tyranids into the hive mind. It is projected by synapse creatures, which are usually leaders such as hive tyrants, Tyranid warriors, and brood lords, or specialist psychers like Zoanthropes. These creatures have greatly increased synapse networks within the cortex, and these act as psychic conduits for the hive mind to order nearby troops. Without the synapse guiding them, most Tyranids would revert to a feral state, although some, such as gene stealers with their brood telepathy, can perform just as well without synapse as they do with it. Yeah, so, these are living creatures, and they have their own will and their own modus operandi, or whatever that is. They have their own desires as well, but the majority of the time, especially during battle, they kind of then get linked into the hive mind. And if the hive mind has a specific job for them, like, we need all those gaunts to go rush that fortified wall, and just don't stop rushing until there's a body pile tall enough to get over that wall, that's when the hive mind will take over and kind of override those base instincts where typically a gaunt's not just going to run at a wall and then just die there. It's going to lurk and shoot its gun and kind of cower. And maybe use the hive mind to control Tyranid Carnifex to stay back and wait, where his kind of normal operating system is to run forward and charge and destroy everything. So the hive mind is basically a way to control these lesser creatures. Absolutely.
And on table, these we always hear the term like synapse range, and there's usually like an aura, 12 inches, 18 inches, 2 feet, whatever it is. So when these Tyranids are within synapse range, they usually get buffs, and they usually are able to activate certain abilities and stuff. So you see it on the table kind of relayed that way, which really, I think, works.
Yeah, that is cool.
I think this edition has the worst version of it, though. Because if I remember, it's most of the time it's just they pass morale tests all the time.
Yeah.
Other editions
in 10th for a little bit, but then I switched to the far superior Necrons, the greatest army in the game.
Never. I was going to agree with you, but not anymore. Talk yourself out of a cosign. Good job, buddy.
Good job. You fucked up on that
Yeah.
one, but whatever. I guess me and Court have to go on without Logan then.
Okay, all right. Well,
bye, guys. Thanks
you
for
can be
coming.
Necron people. The final little piece in the puzzle that we'll talk about of Tyranid kind of relations and psychic powers is the shadow in the warp. It is as if Tyranids have blocked out the connection to the warp, making any psychic abilities very difficult to utilize, affecting psychic races like the Elder most heavily. It does, however, have the added benefit of keeping denizens of the warp in the warp. Many scholars suggest that the shadow of the warp is a result of the constant two-way communication between the hive mind and lesser organisms. This creates a phenomenal amount of psychic activity. In some books and codexes and whatever, there are some people who have tapped into the hive mind and they get devoured almost instantly. But the ones that have kind of survived, they kind of just, all they hear is like screeching, like chirping, like they just hear the sound of a billion trillion creatures all just kind of screeching. And it's enough to drive you mad.
Was it Malkador, the Sigillite, that was able to tap in for a moment? Am I just making that up?
I think you're making that up. I think the most common would be Chief Librarian Tigurius of the Ultramarines.
Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, but this is my favorite thing.
Too.
I think Mephiston's done it too.
Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking. But this is I think the coolest thing about the Tyranids is the shadow in the warp, and so I'm psyched for us to be chatting about it a little bit.
Yeah, it has many different effects too. Like it's not just this like, oh, if I go to listen into their communications, all I hear is screeching and I go mad. It has a lot of different effects. The average person, whether you're a psyker or not, is going to experience uneasiness and terrible nightmares. It just, you feel uncomfortable, like something's fucking coming to destroy and devour your world. You know it's about to happen. Yeah. You don't sleep well.
What if, like how the Tau manifested Tauva, the Tyranids manifest an even scarier Tyranid through the shadow and the warp?
Man, I just kind of think that the hive mind is their god that they've kind of manifested, though. Like, that is the collective warp consciousness that they've manifested.
I guess chicken or the egg, which came first, the hive mind or the actual Tyranids?
Oh, I don't know for sure, but I would definitely say the Tyranids, man. Like, I think it was us talking about it the last time we did a Tyranid episode, where we think like the base Tyranid creature was maybe like a spacefaring kind of floating whale-like creature. You know, and that was kind of its base form, and then it kind of slowly evolved, and maybe it, you know, learned it needs to go down to planets. So then it developed the capillary towers to kind of feed. And then it realized, shit, I need a way to defend these capillary towers. And it slowly just evolved more and more creatures. And then it reached that tipping point where they got enough kind of chittering mass to create the hive mind.
Yeah, I'll buy that too.
Yeah, I remember now. I remember.
Now that is kind of just speculation that the three of us had once again, but it was fun and kind of a logical follow through. Other effects of the shadow in the warp: any psyker with warp sensibility suffers severe headaches, uncontrollable screaming, bleeding of the eyes, and unconsciousness.
All around good time.
Uncontrollable screaming. Yeah.
I'm just picturing exposure to shadows of the warp may cause headaches, uncontrollable screaming, bleeding, and unconsciousness, or death. Consult your physician if you think you should be on shadows of the warp.
To see if Neuro-nids are right for you.
Zoanthrope does sound like a drug, though.
Yes.
Like, you can make an entire commercial just talking about the Zoanthrope, never say what it actually is, and then list side effects if people go to their doctor. Like, I heard about Zoanthrope.
Is it right for me? Other things it does, it blocks out most astropathic signals. It complicates warp travel. Like, if you're going to go into the warp, you might not, your navigators might not even be able to open up that warp portal. Because like, all they hear is that screeching and the screaming, and then their head explodes, or they suffer uncontrollable screaming, as we mentioned. It also disrupts psychic phenomenon. So even regular psychers who try to use their powers around them, they feel like it's harder to tap into. There's kind of a barrier that they first must kind of... It's this weird thing. There's a couple barriers. There's like a barrier that blocks you from the warp, and then there's also the barrier that is blocking you from the Tyranids. And you want to take down the barrier that's blocking you from the warp, but keep up the barrier that's blocking you from all the Tyranids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this like kind of two-wall situation that you have to work past.
I love it. There's like terror that goes before them when they go to like invade a planet, and all this shit starts happening. It's just they do disruption and destruction without even touching ground, you know?
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah. Like a couple other quick, just since you mentioned that, like the ability for Tyranids to destroy without even being there. When Tyranids are on approach to your planet, they have a special Tyranid unit called the Narval. It's a spaceship. And the way this works, it has like tendrils and it locks on to the planet's gravitational pull. And then it's somehow able to create some type of fucking reverse gravity pull that pulls the fleet towards the planet. So that's kind of how they do these like long jumps, is they're actually using gravity of the planet. But back to the destruction of it all, now you're messing with this planet's gravity, where all of a sudden they're suffering from earthquakes or volcano eruptions or just stuff like that they're not normally used to having. Their planet just starts going crazy.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So if we get into the Fourth Tyrannic War, this is kind of the start of the Neuro-nids, as we're going to call it. So the Fourth Tyrannic War began in M42 with the largest invasion of Leviathan. Yet when it attacked the largest invasion of with the largest invasion of Leviathan yet, when it attacked the western reaches of Segmentum Pacificus. The assault began with the coordinated attack from above and below the galactic plane by two new tendrils dubbed Nautilon and Promethor, respectively. The two tendrils are moving in parallel towards Segmentum Solar, and with the Imperium distracted by the Indominus Crusade, few forces initially stood against it. So they weren't even prepared, basically. There was just no idea. It's amazing. So we talk about Leviathan. So Leviathan, when we mention that, is the Hive Fleet. And Hive Fleet Leviathan is the most monstrous and insidious of the Tyranid Hive Fleets. Leviathan's obviously the poster child of the Tyranids with 10th edition, and when you see them, you'll recognize them as being kind of the pale, like the pale skin with the purple chitin, the purple armor. So that's Hive Fleet Leviathan. Yep. They've descended from the Galactic South in 997.M41. An unstoppable force of devouring hunger. Unlike the previous waves of Xenos death that came from the Eastern Fringe, Leviathan chose a different path, a trail beneath the galactic rim. It moved upwards through the galactic plane, spreading across an immense front, its tendrils stretching into the Ultima Segmentum Tempestus, and even into the very heart of the Imperium, Segmentum Solar. So just to kind of give, I know this is mostly audio, but a visual reference, if you think about the galaxy as kind of a plane, almost, I don't want to say necessarily flat, but just more horizontal, you think of things kind of coming in from the left and right. These guys basically just came up from the south of what we call the galaxy and the universe, and it was wild. It fucking terrifying. It's like coming up from the depths almost,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I live on the ocean and I'm swimming a lot in, 60, 70 feet deep water.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't know what the fuck is underneath you. And yeah, all of a sudden the Tyranids come out from the dark of the galactic void.
Yeah. Oh, it's so rad. It's already like everything that they do is just terror. It's so cool.
Being called Leviathan's fitting too, because Leviathan is the beast that comes out of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And they're coming out from underneath.
There we go. Yeah.
I wonder if there are other names like Behemoth and Kraken. Like, I obviously know they're like monstrous creatures from olden times, but if they have that similar kind of approach, because that's a very cool observation there. I'm going to Google those other ones as you read on.
Yeah, I don't think
they're
Behemoth
big in
will,
mythology.
But Kraken will, because Kraken is another sea creature. I don't think the Behemoth is, but it might be.
So Leviathan moved upwards through the galactic plane, spreading across an immense front, its tendrils stretching across the Ultima Segmentum, Segmentum Tempestus, and even the very heart of the Imperium. Its strategy was as calculating as it was brutal. Leviathan split into 2 massive tendrils separated by hundreds of light years. So let that sink in just for a moment. It's crazy. Casting the shadow and the warp across a vast expanse. Worlds caught within its reach were suffocated by the absolute darkness, their psychic contact severed, and reinforcements from the Imperium could not reach them, leaving the worlds isolated and vulnerable. I love that. It's so good.
It's back to that, like, they don't even need to really come for you to fuck up your planet. So they made this cool little trap where, they drew 2 parallel lines on either side of these, or in between these lines. You're just in this dead zone where you're not able to fast travel anymore. You're not able to communicate anymore. All the while, your population has uncontrollable screaming fits as well that you have to now deal with.
Yeah. When you take into consideration just the fun context of this, like, obviously we talk about like Tyranids kind of compared to Alien and the Xenomorph, but also very much so like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and both of those movies play heavy on the isolation theme. And so here, when you talk about Tyranids, isolation is key with them. Like, you are cut off. It's so good. So
yeah. I did find, sorry, before we move on, I did find the other kind of rough meanings. Who knows how accurate these are on my 1-minute Google search. But Kraken is named after a mythical sea creature, and it's likely named that due to its immense size, predatory nature, and the implied threat of sudden devastating attacks. So that's kind of okay, sure, whatever. And the other one was...
Oh, I was going to add the Kraken's a Scandinavian thing, and Leviathan and Behemoth are both Hebrew/biblical things.
Yeah, that was for Behemoth. It's named after a biblical massive creature. And what makes it scary is its sheer size and destructive power. So, it's they got some names, some reasons. There's some fun ones like High Fleet Jomungandar, or whatever the fuck that one is.
Jormungandr,
sure, whatever. But yeah, carry on.
Yeah. So one of these tendrils, a writhing mass of hungry force, was on a direct collision course with Terra itself. Yet it was halted at Tarsus Ultra, a single stop in a relentless advance. But this was no defeat. High Fleet Leviathan was far from broken. It continued to devour the galaxy whole. Jeez, leaving countless worlds in its wake. The Imperium responded as it always does, by desperately raising armies, reinforcing entire systems, and throwing dozens of Space Marine chapters into the furnace of war. Meanwhile, the ancient Eldar, wielding forgotten destructive power, reduced entire planets to lifeless husks, dead worlds consumed by time and fire. The Tau, ever resourceful, turned their innovations into weapons, developing new technologies to try and turn the tide. Yet, as the Great Rift tore the galaxy asunder, Leviathan was thrown into disarray. Its main assault on Baal, the homeworld of the Blood Angels, as we know, had faltered. The blackness consumed much of its strength as it faced the defenders of Baal. The devastating fury of the Indomitus Crusade and the newly awakened demonic forces. Leviathan's forces were shattered, but its hunger was not satisfied. Instead, it laid in wait, ready to rise again. In M42, Leviathan reared its hideous head once more. The Tyranid Hive Fleet launched a massive offensive, unleashing several new tendrils into Segmentum Pacificus, a fresh wave of destruction that now threatened the Segmentum Solar itself. The galaxy would tremble once more under the relentless alien hunger of Leviathan. Damn.
I wonder, it's fun to think of the effects that the Great Rift had on everything. It's pretty clear what happened to the Imperium. We got the Dark Imperium now, and we got the regular Imperium. But just imagine when this warp rifts open up and it sends this backlash through the Tyranid race. I wonder if they felt it, if they noticed, if they recoiled at it even. We talked even about the Silent King from the Necron. he's just doing his own thing on the outside of the edge of the galaxy, and then he looks back and he sees the Great Rift, and like his mindset, like, whoa, what the fuck just happened back there? Do you guys think that the Great Rift opening had any specific effect on the Tyranids like that, or was it more just like, oh shit, like it blew up our path and now it kind of just stopped? It wasn't necessarily like,
I don't know. The blowing up the path thing made me think they're like ants now. They need a pheromone or some trail to follow, and the Great Rift ripping broke their trail that they were following.
like ants or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it definitely pushes them to change. I mean, they're constantly evolving and altering. I'm sure it, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that big a deal to the hive mind or the collective Tyranids itself, but I think it was enough to notice, for them to notice that there is pushback and there's like cause and effect, and so with that, there's adaptation.
Yeah, and that's a good point, man. Like, you know, these neuro-nids happened at a very specific point in time. Like, they happened not because of the Great Rift, but like they happened because maybe they were involved with the Great Rift to some degree. Like maybe it seeped into them and now they're just a little more psychic, so then that's what they pump out. Or they realize the galaxy's more psychic, so they need more defense against that level of psychicness or whatever.
Yeah.
Adapt and evolve.
They ate enough psychers to develop neuro-nids.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Purge in the chat asks, is each hive fleet all part of the same hive mind or separate ones? And I said all the safe hive mind, only one hive mind exists, but it's not a localized existence, as we talked about. There's not one place where the hive mind goes. It's just it is. And then he asks, is that fact or assumed? And you know, it's like it's one of those GW has stated that they know, but they won't confirm it ever. Like, this is what everyone thinks, this is how it operates, but like they leave it kind of open to the mystery of it. Like, it's still an unknown alien race from beyond the galactic plane. Like, they try to keep it mysterious, but no, we can pretty well assume that, you know, there's not multiple hive minds. We've seen no examples of that. You know, each hive fleet definitely doesn't have its own, and they all share their information willingly too. So
I think with that, there's two key words that GW chooses to use when describing that, is collective and singular. And so those seem contradictory at times, because collective would be multiple parts formed together, and singular is obviously one. But I think that's kind of the contradiction that works for them, is that it can be multiple places, but it is a collective, unified hive mind. So it itself is one.
Yeah.
So, discovery of the next wave. The first stirrings of the Tyranid threat that arrived, not with a roar, but with a suffocating silence, a creeping stillness that spread across the segmentum pacificus as the shadow and the warp descended. The comms fell silent, the entire systems slipping into a void of nothingness, unnoticed by the Imperium bureaucracy, mired as it was in its own slow-moving gears. The loss of distant systems went unheeded, drowned amidst the ever-present storms of the warp, and the chaotic noise of simultaneous threats from orcs and Nid? Kynydd? Is that just pronounced Nid?
Yeah. I would probably, yeah.
Huh, freaky. All right. But what seemed like the usual cosmic disarray soon revealed its horrific truth. In the Morpheum sector, a grim revelation shattered the complacency. High astropath Gid-Eoth, the last bastion of communication with the stars, was consumed, transformed into a withering, tendril abomination. Once a beacon of light, now an instrument of death, the astropath ravaged the astropathic choir, spreading destruction with an alien mind and 1,000 twisted limbs. Only after his horrific transformation did the true nature of the invader become clear. The Tyranids had come. Reports trickled in, too slow to prevent the damage already done. The Bryoth subsector, already gripped in battle with orcs, was consumed by the swarming Xenos. In the Trinary Reach cluster, a fleeting moment of hope, a retreating Leagues of Votan fleet, leaving Imperial forces in the belief they had been saved. But the Tyranids followed in their wake, as inevitable as the dark. Refugee fleets began to flood the Harada stars, Mytolian Belt, Templum II, and Geth's. You did me dirty with all these words in my section.
I was so excited for you to read that word. I saw it in the notes earlier. I was like, "Oh, Logan's gonna read this."
I feel like I'm being done
sometimes
so dirty
sometimes I just even make up words, like that Knid one, made up, completely fake. I just wanted to see how you'd read it.
No,
it is actually, and it has
species.
been interrupting with Imperial trade routes.
Yeah.
So that's what we know about that.
Has it? Okay. All right. All these places and Geth's Gethsemanex. I don't like
Gethsemane.
I don't like this game anymore. Gethsemanex. Their numbers rising like a wave. No quarantine could stop them. Tyranid spores, the very essence of predation, slipped through, causing uprisings of unthinkable savagery. The very flesh of the Imperium began to twist and churn in response to the alien presence. The Imperial response, fragmented and slow, could only piece together a horrific picture. Two vast tendrils of high-fleet Leviathan, monstrous in their size, had breached Imperial space in a terrifying and coordinated thrust. One, Nautolan? One Nautolan slithered into the Vinor sector from above, while the other, Prometheor, surged into the Morpheum sector from below. These two tendrils, synchronized and relentless, advanced in parallel, their trajectory set towards the segmentum solar and Holy Terra itself. Desperate and disjoined, the Imperium's response unfolded in chaos. Some governors scrambled to marshal defenses, but others fled, abandoning their people to the insatiable tide. Some Space Marine chapters and Imperial Navy units fought along with whatever strength they could muster, while Astra Militarum forces, grim and determined, sought to form lines of resistance. But these lines would break. The Tyranid hunger would not be denied.
Yeah, it would be a crazy thought to have that realization. Oh shit, they're heading towards Terra, and like, look at all these other planets that they've headed towards. They just wreck them all and devour everything, and now they're heading towards our capital planet. Like, yeah, that would not be good.
How do you even conceptualize trying to stop something like that too? Like, what do you do? You throw what you can.
Yeah, and hope for the best.
I was going to say lots and lots of virus bombs.
Yeah, more sacrifices.
Hey, if they can sacrifice 1,000 people to the Emperor every day, they can sacrifice 10,000 people to the High Fleet Leviathan.
Come on. Why else did you sign up to be a guardsman if not to get devoured?
Exactly.
It's
or
time.
Another funny thing, the Imperium just starts collecting all the bodies that they kill throughout everything, putting them on ships and just flying the ships straight into Leviathan to keep them satiated as long as they can.
Is it full yet? No, it's still hungry. God,
that was the 10th ship this month. Yeah, feeding the beast like that I don't think would work. Fun, though.
They're going to be launching food crusades just to harvest enough food for
then
the
all
Leviathan.
The Imperial citizens revolt. They're like, fuck, why are you sending all our corpse starch away, man? What are we going to eat?
True. I forget about the corpse starch.
Yeah.
So the Imperium, seeing what was happening, and they had some responses. Their initial response was the eyes of the Emperor, those ever-watchful agents of the Adeptus Custodes, spied the approaching storm. The Tyranid threat was real, and it reached now extended towards Terra itself. As the frigate Pinion docked at the Holy Planet, its warning reached Captain General Trajan Valoris. In the shadow of the Emperor's throne, Valoris met with the High Lords of Terra, all grim in the new face of a nightmare. Segmentum Solar stood exposed, its defenses stretched thin by the relentless Indominus Crusade. With the Imperium's forces scattered and the galaxy in turmoil, many feared the Imperium's heart had become vulnerable. Yet Valoris and Lord Commander Solar Acheon Leontus would not allow Terra to fall without a fight. A massive mobilization was ordered, a frenzy of preparation, the likes of which had not been seen in ages. A doctrine of aggressive defense took root. The Imperial garrisons would hold the line with everything they had, but for the true elite and the more dangerous weapons was forged. Soul Blades, rapid response strike forces, were formed from the fearsome blend of Space Marines, Sisters of Battle, Military Tempestus, Knights, Mechanicum, Inquisition, and even the Custodes themselves. These forces were given a broad autonomy, freed from the bureaucratic red tape to wage war wherever it was most needed. Few in number, but fast as the hunt, they were designed to bleed the Tyranids, to strike deep and hard, knowing that their mobility was their only advantage. By the time the first Soul Blades deployed, the Tyranids had already consumed half a dozen sectors in the Pacificus, but the Soul Blades tore into them like a fang into soft flesh. Each counterattack they launched was a death blow, if only momentarily, stalling the Tyranids' advance. These Soul Blades is kind of a crazy thing, really. We have crusades, and we get the idea of crusades of a bunch of forces coming together to take out this system or reconquer this system or whatever. But what makes Soul Blades really unique, I think, compared to just a regular crusade, is the integration of them all, where it's like a crusade, a Space Marine chapter shows up, but it's doing its own thing. They might have some communication between that and the leading general of the crusade, but like not necessarily. But these Soul Blades, it seems like their goal was like, let's utilize everything they have. Let's make sure that everyone is in the right spot. Let's make sure everyone's talking to each other too. And are not bound up by red tape.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, how the Imperium is known to have issues with communicating between branches, like the Navy can't communicate with the Guard. So the fact that they've organized this with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 branches of the Imperium, and they're actually coordinating well.
Yeah,
that's
awesome. I don't think it would have
That's
the same effect if the Custodes weren't there. Then you'd have that like, well, who's actually in charge? But since the Custodes appeared, you got that very clear, like, okay, like, let's put them in charge to kind of lead this, and then we don't have to bicker over who's sending people where. We can just trust they're going to do the right thing with it.
What a cool way to play like a narrative campaign with your buddies too. Like if you had, every time we do in-store campaigns or tournaments or something, there's a clear, clear distinction of like massive Imperium players. Like there's a lot of Space Marine players. There's, like 1 or 2 Orc guys, and there's always a couple Nid guys. It'd be so fun to do like a 3K game, 3,000 points. You get two Nid players, maybe 3 Nid players, all doing 1,000 points each, one side of the table. And on the other side, you have a Sisters player, you have a Space Marines player, you have something like, maybe you have like Death Watch, you have like a couple Guard guys, and you've got someone that's running Custodes. Like that could be so fun.
Yeah.
The first half I was worried about it because our last narrative thing we did at the store, half the Imperium players said they were the real Imperium, so we had fighting amongst the Imperium. It was so rough. Man. It was like, you're not the real Imperium. It's like, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, Griffin got excommunicated. They basically said like, nope, you're a heretic. And he was playing Custodes, I think.
Hey.
And, oh man.
Yeah, he kept picking fights with everybody else. He's like, you're not really working for the Emperor.
Yeah.
And he was a good sport about it too, though, because that could feel bad getting kicked out of the hole. But he was like, no, 100%. I'm not part of you. Yeah. I'm the real Imperium.
I'm gonna go tell the Emperor on all of you.
Yeah, he just owned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling Dad.
I sleep in his room. I'm telling him.
I don't like that. Oh man. Yeah, that's a fun image. It's just the Emperor and his 300 companions just sleeping together, bunking. Very nice.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some ladies in there now too. So
no, there are not. Get fucked with that. No, there are not. Come on. This is Lorehammer. This is old school, good 40k lore before they went woke and gay. So, anyways, Soul Blades are pretty fun. Time was short for the Soul Blades. They were harried by alien swarms. Valoris and Litanius focused their efforts on creating a line of defense, a barrier against the oncoming tidal wave of Xenos. The Sanctus line was forged, built around the key anchor worlds, fortified bastions that lay along vital warp transit routes. Though the Tyranids themselves did not use the warp, these worlds were strategic lifelines for the Imperium's logistics, the anchors upon which the defense of the Segmentum Solar would hang. Each anchor world was given the full weight of the subsector's resources, not only to bolster the defensive position, but also to serve as staging grounds for the Soul Blade's relentless assaults. The hope was simple: hold these worlds at all costs, and the Tyranid advance would be slowed, perhaps stopped. Fun little plan if you control like the I forget what they call them, the Mandilin lines. Those like warp routes where you can jump to specific points in a segmentum or a system. I wish I remember what they were called. But it's a pretty cool plan. Basically, if you hold the way to get into places, then you can bring in your reinforcements, you can bring in all the extra troops. And like you said, Court, one of the Tyranids' primary plans is to try to isolate you and separate you off from everything else. So if you can keep that line of contact, you have a good chance. The Soul Blade struck deep, pushing deep into the paths of the Prometheor and Nautilin tendrils. But the Tyranids were no simple foe. They did not advance in a straight line. No, these were not the mindless waves of lesser creatures. The tendrils of Prometheor and Nautilin were vast and deliberate, each one splintering into smaller fleets that sought out new prey. And sometimes the Tyranids would retreat only to return with a savage vengeance, stalking the shadows of human settlements, picking off survivors like a hunter waiting for the perfect kill. The Tyranids were slow, but they were patient, and that was the true terror. They did not rush their hunger; they savored it. Just a slow eater. I like that. It's interesting too how this kind of tactic has happened. We've talked before about how after the battle with the Blood Angels and Ball and stuff, the Tyranids have kind of changed and have almost become vengeful and like now have actual enemies as opposed to just food sources. And it's interesting how this tactic has kind of evolved, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna retreat and we'll come back with more. Like that's not a very Tyranid tactic. We'll come back and we'll feast later.
I know we've talked about it before, how they don't really feel emotions, but I wonder if the fight at Ball actually let them feel emotions somehow.
Yeah.
Like if they're angry, then that's an emotion. Are they starting to become more intelligent from that interaction? Have they eaten enough smart people to start to think?
Yeah. Like I always think, I have a newborn daughter, and she doesn't know what she doesn't know. She has to be taught everything. And the Tyranids, like they've had no need for emotions up until this point, so like they don't know what they are. So yeah, they start devouring them, and then they slowly have to discover this whole new range of emotions that they're starting to get. Which the first one seems to be like rage and hunger and destruction, but. Not like my little daughter.
I was going to say, it's a lot like a baby. They don't know anything other than anger, hunger, and
first of all,
discomfort.
My baby's perfect, I'll have you know, and I'll fight anyone who says otherwise. But
no
other babies are monsters for sure.
I think, though, yeah, the hive mind, though, if it's this collective consciousness that we kind of discuss, like in war, just again, this is kind of blanket statement. Emotion is weakness. Like you don't want that. So the idea that Tyranids could like develop emotion or have emotion, and if they're going to develop it, it seems to be appropriate on Ball. I mean, the Blood Angels, but I feel like the hive mind would just be like, nope, we're shutting that off. We are shutting off the emotions. Nope, we're not letting you guys watch Love Actually on December 24th.
Not happening. Nope. Not on my watch.
Don't cry. Not happening. Nope.
I don't know.
I think weakness can be, emotions can be manipulated. Like Horus, hello. And I think that having Tyranids be singular minded and just, they're going to destroy, they're going to consume, they're going to feed, they're going to eat, they're going to kill. If you bring emotions into it, this coming from a guy who has cried multiple fucking times on this podcast, I think it weakens them, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it just makes them.
Maybe it becomes their strength.
it makes them feel relatable, which is the exact opposite feeling that we've always kind of had with Tyranids, where it's like this alien thing we don't know. Like, we don't even know what the hive mind is. This is just what we think it is. Like, yeah, to have something so tangible and relatable, yeah, it kind of just bumps them into a different bracket.
Case in point, and this is maybe double nerding again, but like Alien, great. Aliens, fantastic. Alien 3, I secretly really love. Well, not secretly, I just love it. But Alien Resurrection, the fourth one, we get introduced to the newborn, the dumb green, like gut skinny chicken legged thing that's a clone of Ripley that came out of the Alien Queen. There's a moment in this movie, which there's many that suck. There's a moment in this movie where it like gives you this, oh, mama, before it dies. And you're like, no, fuck that thing. Kill it. It has emotion. I don't like that.
Alien Resurrection is the funniest movie in the series.
It's stupid. And man, it gives like this eye look of like, please don't kill me. And then it like goes to like kill something and then it dies and whatnot. But no. When you give something that's pure terror emotion, you can then relate to it. I don't want to relate to the Tyranids. I want to be terrified.
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
I mean, this is pretty terrifying. For audio listeners, we are looking at a picture of it right now, and it is a thing of beauty, per the scientist in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, awful. Let's get that off my screen.
You can hate it all you want. That is my favorite schlocky horror sci-fi movie. I love Alien Resurrection. It's so ridiculous.
Do you?
Dude, it's because it's just, like you said, Alien 1, amazing. Put your headphones back on. Alien 1, amazing. Alien 2, absolute cinema, peak. Alien 3, not my favorite. Alien Resurrection, really ridiculous and fun. That is all that movie is ridiculous fun.
Hot takes. You guys want to know something wild? I'm not sure I watched any of the Aliens except maybe the odd scene or two on Spike TV back in the day. So,
well, now Court and I are both doing so bad.
We're changing that.
All right, so it won't turn into Court Hammer this episode. It would just be Mark Hammer. These two have left me for my heresies. Yeah, that's fine. But now, the Imperium would exploit the Predator's patience. The Soul Blades, swift and calculated, took the fight to them. The Tyranids met them in brutal engagement after brutal engagement, but the Imperium's forces would not yield. Tactical victories, though costly, mounted in the Soul Blades' favor. Yet the Tyranids would not relent. For every blow the Imperium struck, the Xenos staggered back, but it did not break. The forward momentum of Nautilin and Prometheor faltered, their progress fragmented, but hope was fleeting. Victory would be a brief respite, the calm before the storm's final fury. The Tyranid hunger would not be denied for long.
Dun, dun, dun.
They're coming back.
Yeah. You can do all you want, but you're going to lose, I think. So, speaking of the tendril fleets, we've got the tendril fleets Nautilin and Prometheor. Hive Fleet Prometheor, a newly revealed and immense tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan, so kind of an offshoot there, has surged into Segmentum Pacificus, heralding the terrifying beginning of the Fourth Tyrannic War. Its arrival, alongside the relentless onslaught of Hive Fleet Nautilon, has marked the beginning of an invasion that will drown entire sectors in endless hunger and destruction. The advance of Prometheor is precise, calculated, and brutal. It first tore open the defenses of the Morpheum sector, a savage wound in the flesh of the Imperium, and then began to carve its way into the neighboring Cassador Gulf. By the time the Imperium had grasped the true scale of the threat posed by Prometheor and Nautilon, the tendrils were already moving in parallel, advancing with relentless purpose towards Segmentum Solar. The full scope of the coordinated assault now looms like a dark cloud over Terra. Should those two tendrils continue on their course, the Imperium's greatest fear takes shape, an unstoppable flood of Tyranid hunger reaching the very heart of humanity. In response, Imperial officials have begun a frantic mobilization, rallying all available forces to try and halt the advance of Promothor and Nautilon, praying that they can stop the Tyranid tide before it consumes everything in its path. Delay it? Sure. Stop it?
Yeah, you know, like the Tyranid creature, it's all like one tendril. Like I can imagine the Hive Fleet Leviathan eventually goes back down through the galactic void and eventually reconnects back to like another Hive Fleet, like Hive Fleet Behemoth or Kraken or these other ones. So like you can't really ever stop the Tyranids because you wipe out one tendril, but it's still technically attached to the rest of it, and that tendril's just going to kind of reform back up.
Yeah.
So while I was reading that, I went to look up Promothor because I was wondering if there was anything other than just the Prometheum reference with it. That's actually a recycled name from Space Marine Heroes 1. The one with the plasma gun is named Brother Prometheor.
Same spelling?
Yeah, exact same spelling. So they recycled. They took that from a Space Marine and gave it to a Hive Fleet, which I love.
That's cool.
I tried to do the same with Nautilon Fleet, and I didn't have any luck finding anything neat like we did with Leviathan or whatever.
Well, NAUT naut is nautical, so like Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The Nautilus is Nemo's ship, so another kind of oceanic terminology.
Yeah, a lot of creation, oceanic stuff going on with the Tyranids.
You got a fun one, Logan.
I do, and I'm looking up, and I don't see anything about it being a cool name, but it is Tendril. Yeah, it looks like, I don't know what it's related to, but Tendril Fleet Grendyllus. Hive Fleet Grendyllus, a newly uncovered and gargantuan tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan, emerged with chilling ferocity, joining the savage assault on Segmentum Pacificus alongside its brethren tendrils, Nautilon and Prometheor, triggering the Fourth Tyrannic War. Unlike the initial predictable waves of destruction from Nautilon and Prometheor, Grendyllus took the Imperium by surprise. Its arrival was far more insidious, striking after the Imperium had already engaged the two other tendrils in brutal combat. Grendyllus tore upwards from the galactic plane, a horrific eruption of hunger and malice, and then proceeded to attack well behind the front line of the Soul Blades, those few brave forces sent to disrupt the Tyranid onslaught. By the time distress signals reached Imperial ears, it was already too late. Grendyllus' approach was heralded by sudden suffocating blow of its shadow in the warp, darkening all that came near, smothering any cries for help, and severing all communication. In its wake, the warning of its arrival died, consumed by the relentless void of Tyranid hunger. The Imperium was blind to the storm descending upon them. I think GW did a really good job, not just writing this lore, like this is cool, but I think they did a really good job in the trailers leading up to Leviathan's release, the 10th edition launch box, because there was a lot of this type of feeling. Like it wasn't a normal Tyranid invasion. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on this time, so I'm glad their marketing was well tied with the actual lore of what was happening.
Yeah, they had some killer videos.
Yeah, they did a good job.
Yeah, so they had their two tendrils that were kind of creating that blockade of psychic presence, and then they were kind of being slowed and stopped during the Fourth War. And then out of nowhere, a third tendril comes in, this Grendyllus one. And this is where the action really happens and things starts to change and get different for them.
I think the name also, it's spelled a little differently, but if you think of Grendel is one of the antagonists, it's the kind of bestial creature that's Angelina Jolie's little baby in the movie Beowulf, which is obviously the epic poem Beowulf. But Grendel being that kind of creature, that monster in that story. So maybe they just threw a Y in it instead of the E. And
like from my understanding, Grendel in that mythos and Beowulf was kind of like it would come in the middle of the night and like it was kind of stealthy and then it would rampage. It was unexpected, and that's very Grendyllus as well, where they thought they were doing good against these two Tyranid tendrils, but they had no idea that this third Grendyllus one was actually coming, and it was the kind of kill and blow one.
Mm-hmm. Got to watch out for that third Grendel, you know what I mean?
The third Grendel.
Coming out of nowhere.
Fuck.
Get Grendeled.
I was going to say all my homies hate the third Grendel.
Yeah, but do you kiss
right
them
on there,
goodnight?
Grendel?
No.
You got to kiss the homies goodnight, man.
My wife doesn't let me do that anymore.
Selfish, really. It's very just selfish of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's all, I married you. I'm the only one who gets to kiss you. And I don't think that's fair.
Sounds like
but
she's pretending like she
whatever.
owns you and not the other way around. I don't like it.
That's the true hive mind.
That's true. Marriage is a partnership, good sir.
Yeah. So now we're going to jump into the Battle of Bastior. Little kind of disclaimer here. All this came out pretty recent, and there's a whole big campaign book on all of this stuff. So I'm kind of just giving the subtext of what we need to kind of know why the Neuro-nids happened. But the Battle of Bastior was pretty important and another kind of piece to this puzzle. But there is a lot of information on all this. You know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We'll do an episode on it one day soon, TM. But yeah, we're skimming over some stuff here. But like I said, there'll be some important stuff we have to cover. So the Battle of Bastior, it rages as the relentless swarm of Hive Fleet Leviathan descends upon the Imperium in the Fourth Tyrannic War. Grendyllus, a new and unpredicted tendril, rose from beneath the galactic plane like an unseen predator, tearing through the vast swaths of Imperial and Xenos territory in a surge of unyielding hunger. Its emergence was an utter betrayal of any expected stability. While the Imperium relied on the strategies of Soul Blades and Anchor Worlds, Grendyllus struck silently, consuming everything in its path as if guided by an alien instinct too ancient and vast to comprehend. The first warning came too late. With Battle Group Fastias under Tyson Yakubov left fumbling in the dark, his task forces disappeared without a trace, vanishing in the shadows of space. It was only when survivors limped into the Circel system, their minds shattered by what they had witnessed, that the full horror was realized. The shadow in the warp had begun to spread its suffocating grip, warping minds, driving astropaths to madness, and plunging entire systems into chaos. In the wake of this devastation, Yakubov acted swiftly, anchoring the remaining Imperial forces at Sanctum in a desperate attempt to slow the alien tide. Even Lord Commander Solar Arcadian Leontus, I love how I say their name different every time I say it, but that's how we roll here on Lorehammer. None of us can read, and we're proud of it. But this Lord Commander could do very little more than to watch as Grendyllus' ravenous swarm advanced upon the Bastion worlds and the subsector. By then, the Empire had already begun to crack. Panic and despair, disbelief spread like disease, particularly on Lenithor, where the ruling classes fell into decadent revelry as the Tyranids consumed their world. Meanwhile, the Imperial Guard mobilized in places like Agrandia and Tzing Rang, but it was futile resistance in the face of Grendyllus' tendrils' onslaught. The Tyranids flowed through the subsector like a tide of biological annihilation, bypassing defenses and overwhelming those few who dared resist. With every passing moment, the Imperium's grip on the territory slipped further. In response, Leontus enacted the Sanctuary Protocol, sending out desperate pleas for reinforcements across the segmentum. Forces were pulled back into retreat, but they were already too late. Some systems fell with grim inevitability. Pyromote and Castiel were overrun as Tyranids bypassed Imperial fortifications, cutting through the shattered remnants of humanity's defenses. Yet the swarm did not relent, launching wave after wave as the very universe itself had become a feeding ground for their insatiable hunger. Grendyllus continued to evolve in its savagery, focusing all of its might on the Formdire system. Tyranid bioships surged through space, their numbers so vast that the very stars themselves seemed to darken with their advance. As the shadow in the warp thickened, Leontis, desperate for any hope, flooded the system with propaganda, stirring the defenders into a brief and futile surge of defiance. But nothing could stop the Tyranid onslaught as it consumed world after world. Even as Imperial forces struck back, they found themselves overwhelmed. No matter how many orcs or necrons fought alongside them, the Tyranids simply kept coming, a ceaseless swarm with no end in sight.
What is the propaganda that this guy started flooding the system with? Like, you're going to die.
If you fight, you might not.
Get off your asses. Yeah. Sit and die, fight, and maybe.
Have you always wanted a cool laser gun? There's another classic piece of propaganda that always gets me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's interesting, just like that idea, like he flooded the system with propaganda, and it definitely feels very Starship Troopers, like I'm doing my part.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Another peak movie.
Yeah. Do you like travel? Great.
Travel to unknown planets.
Do you hate Xenos? Cool.
Great. Yeah,
right.
We've got a job for you.
Yeah.
I want the record to reflect. We made it almost halfway through a script before someone brought up Kurz in the chat.
That's pretty good. Well,
that's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty
so
good.
you mentioned propaganda and that triggered Kurz.
You know what else is Oh, chat! I love the chat room.
While you were reading this, I looked up Grendel with a Y just to see if anything interesting popped up. It's an Inquisitor from Darktide.
Okay.
So these tendrils are recycled GW names with stuff added to them.
So nice. They're better. Yeah. It's still a better naming convention than wolf guns and wolf blades and.
Oh no doubt. It's cool. It's just it's funny that that they've gotten to the point. They have so many cool names that now they're recycling them for other things.
Have you guys seen?
Look, there's only so many words.
Exactly. Have you guys seen Space King from Flash Gets?
Yeah, Court. Have you seen Space King?
I've not.
Have I not bothered you every episode about watching Space King?
Oh my God, get on it. All right, we're going to pause the podcast here while he can go watch.
No.
Show's over.
If I don't watch it by the next episode, Logan, you can make me read any words that you don't want to. And I will read them. You just point at me and I will say it, and then you can continue on with the sentence.
All right, this is going to be a fun script for me to write. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Find all the write all my
He'll
sections in Old English and just horrific words, and I'll read I'll read 2 words and then just point and make him read them all.
I know the Tyranid has descended upon the planet.
Yeah, we're just going to speak in High Gothic the whole time.
No, you're going to speak in High Gothic the whole time. What's this wee stuff?
Jeez.
So the Imperial Navy and the forces of the Adeptus Mechanicus threw themselves into battle, trying to break the grip of the Xenos, but even the might of the Phalanx, the ancient fortress of the Imperium and the Imperial Fist, could not halt the deluge. The Tyranid swarm simply shifted its attack, pouring through gaps in the defensive lines and landing billions of warrior organisms on the surface of Sanctum itself. The Phalanx burned in the wake of the attack, its massive batteries falling silent, as the Tyranids flooded the world below. There, the swarms joined together, their numbers swelling as they pressed in, the Imperium's last defenses crumbling under the weight of an unstoppable tide. It's crazy the Phalanx kind of got blown up in this encounter. You know, it has 10,000 years of service behind it, including like the 13th Black Crusade and fighting Abaddon and protecting Terra and all these kind of cool things that, you know, pour one out for the Phalanx, I think. Rip.
Yeah, but they're facing billions. It's numbers. I mean, it's numbers, really.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's like being attacked by a beehive, man. Like, yeah, you swat 50 of them, but you're still so fucked. Yeah. You're being stung
Did we talk about that? I think we talked about that in the first one when we talked about Tyranids. Like, if you want to experience the hive mind at its finest, go punch a wasp's nest.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When you were
and I tried it.
When you mentioned earlier that you have to like drop one thing to get your psychic powers but not drop the other thing to get the hive mind to expose to you. The whole time you're talking about that, I just picture some dude opening his window to like catch a bee in a cup, and he has to time it just right or his house is going to be full of bees. That's what I was picturing the whole time. Like, gotta be quick. Oh, too slow, the hive mind's in your face.
Oh no, bees.
Fuck. If any man has experienced the hive mind at its worst, it's Nicolas Cage in Wicker Man.
Ooh, yeah.
Bees.
Yeah.
Not the bees. Oh man. Tyranid organisms flooded the surface of Sanctum, overwhelming everything in their path. The Imperial lines buckled and broke under the crushing force. Their warriors unable to stem the tide as one swarm fed into the next, perfect unity of relentless predation. The forests of Voth's Reach were set ablaze by the fury of the Sisters of Battle, but the Xenos simply adapted, shifting their strategy, interlocking their swarms, allowing others to bypass defenses and outflank the last pockets of Imperial resistance. As the Tyranids crushed forward, they took hold of the Kesvin steps, cutting off key defensive points and eliminating any semblance of coordination and resistance. Meanwhile, the Swarmlord, an apex hunter of the Hive, descended from above, its shadow blotting out the sky, its presence a harbinger of doom for the Imperial defenders. Ground forces were forced into retreat, their positions bombarded from orbit, even as they fought to delay the inevitable. But as each new wave of Tyranids crashed against the Imperial lines, it became increasingly clear that the swarm would devour them all. They were the apex predators now, unstoppable, unrelenting, and driven by a hunger that would not be denied. Yeah, they just came in hard. And, I think that's where we leave this kind of history portion off. Like I said, there's a whole episode worth here of information. I don't want to spoil too much about the ending of all this. So I feel like that gives you a good little perspective of what happens. The Tyranids came in with Leviathan and they had a plan. They had the two tendrils and they were trying to block off everything. The Imperium countered with Soul Blades, where it was like this super uber unit, the Imperial soup, as we call it, where you just toss everything into the pot and you see what kind of delicious stew you create. And they were actually able to stop the tendrils from advancing. But the Tyranids, ever adapting, came up with the third one that kind of pushed in from another direction and started to really advance and wipe stuff out. A couple of things when reading through this was how much stronger the Shadow of the Warp was with High Fleet Grendyllus. That seems like a big factor. The other kind of big factor I'll throw was how unified they were, even for Tyranids, where they had multiple swarms, like adapting and retreating and like pretty standard Tyranid stuff. But it just, the way they were wording it seemed like they were taking it to the next level almost.
Someone in the chat, and maybe you guys can find it, was saying, what if Grendyllus was basically planned the whole time and those first two, Nautilus and Promothor, were decoys? Or not necessarily, but almost decoys, like, hey, this is happening, and they're like, oh shit, we got to deal with it, and then there goes the real main fight. I thought that was a cool idea.
That was Fuzz said that earlier.
Was that Fuzz? Yeah, nice, Fuzz. I like that idea. I think that's kind of cool to think that we always kind of view the Tyranids as adapting, and yeah, that's true. But why not give them the cool story vibe of like, no, they were ahead of it the whole time. They don't need to adapt in this. They were the ones that had the upper hand, or rather the upper tendril in this case. You know what I mean?
If Grendyllus is more full of the Neuro-nids, then that kind of makes sense. The two normal ones are brute force, and then the smart one is sneaky about it.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Cool. Do we want to go with the fleet adaptations, or do we want to kind of jump into more of the Neuro-nid stuff?
Let's do the fleet adaptations, and then we'll get to the main kind of gist of this episode.
Cool. So, some fleet adaptations. So, talking about adaptability, like we just discussed, a hive fleet's ability to adapt to different threats is driven by the inherent nature of the hive mind, which is both a collective, there's our keyword again right there, a collective intelligence, one of two, and an ever-evolving organism. So organism is singular. Boom. There it is.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together, guys. The hive mind constantly learns, adapting its tactics strategies, and bioforms to overcome whatever challenges it faces, much like Michael Scott when he talks about adapt, react, readapt, apt. So just
wise words.
Yeah. When confronted with a new threat, whether it be a powerful psychic force, a formidable weaponry system, or a unique form of resistance, or even a fucking planet like we talked about, the hive mind rapidly processes the information, calculating the most efficient response. This learning process is instantaneous, with the knowledge rapidly spreading across the entire fleet via the psychic network. The result is a highly dynamic and ever-changing swarm capable of evolving in real time to counter the myriad of dangers of the galaxy. The physical adaptations that occur with a hive fleet's bioforms are often immediate and unsettling. I'm sure it wouldn't be very pretty in the process either. For example, if a particular organism or weapon proves ineffective against an enemy, the hive mind may direct the creation of new organisms designed to counteract that specific threat. Bioforms like zoanthropes, equipped with a psychic power to suppress enemy psychers, or venomthropes, capable of creating toxic clouds to deter ranged fire, may be mass produced in response to particular hazards. These two, model wise, it's fun. It's the same kit, actually. It's the same box, but you can model it differently. So the zoanthropes are like the big noggin, big head guys, and the venomthropes are the little head dudes, but they've got like the long tendrils that stick out. Really cool kit. Love
all the tendrils for tasting your flesh, just flicking and licking you. I hate it.
Not a lot makes me uncomfortable. That made me uncomfortable. All the tendrils for tasting my flesh. Ugh,
yes. Get tendrilled, Logan.
Ugh, no, I'm good.
Oh. In more extreme cases, the hive mind can completely overhaul entire swaths of the fleet's genetic stock, producing specialized units with entirely new abilities. This flexibility ensures that the Tyranids remain a constant evolutionary force, always evolving to exploit weaknesses in the enemy. The hive fleet's adaptability is not limited to biological and tactical changes. It extends to its overall strategy and approach. When faced with an enemy that relies on fortifications, for instance, the hive mind may adjust the swarm's approach, utilizing creatures with tunneling abilities such as trigons to breach defensive lines. Alternatively, when confronting highly mobile foes or those capable of hit and run tactics, kind of like maybe Drukhari in that way, the hive fleet may deploy faster, more agile creatures like gene stealers or hormigons to swarm and entrap the enemy. If a particular planet presents unusual environmental challenges, such as extreme cold or radiation, the hive fleet may deploy specially adapted organisms that can thrive in such conditions, ensuring no obstacle is insurmountable. Through the ceaseless adaptability, the hive fleet ensures that no matter the threat, its hunger will not be denied, and it will continue to consume and evolve without pause. I love that it's just such a formidable, horrific foe. And if I can quote the awesome Rage Against the Machine song, "Know your enemy." How do you know your enemy when it keeps changing? Like you can't. And just to give a fun shout out, my buddy Manny was playing Nids, which he calls big nitty bitches. That was his, and we all loved it. It was funny, but he painted them each individually and like almost like they were like this amalgamation of a different like bunch of hive fleets, and he painted them in such a way that there was one that was like volcanic that clearly had adapted to be living on like a lava based planet. There was one of them that was very foresty, and he built it with like moss and painted it all green and everything. Like it had adapted that way. Such a cool thing you can do to like kit bash and design your Tyranids to fit certain roles.
Yeah, like I've seen some furry Tyranids for like winter adaptations, like very cool.
Yeah, really, really neat.
The a couple years ago there was there was a crab type of Tyranid. I don't want to say it's a leopard crab, but it was a really detailed paint job, and someone did the entire army that way. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, they did the. I think I know what you're talking about. It's the color scheme is kind of tannish bright, but it had
Coconut
like
crab.
purpley coconut crab.
Coconut crab themed Tyranids, and he painted all their carapaces that way, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so the Tyranids can adapt in many ways, and that's where we get to the Neuro-nids, kind of their newest adaptation. And it's funny, it's like you say, how do you fight the enemy that you don't know? Like for the longest time, Tyranids, when you fight them, you're like, shoot the big ones first. But the Neuro-nids take this away from you, or that tactic away from us.
Yeah, the big ones are key players. Like you see big nids on the table, you're like, I gotta fucking kill that thing. But sometimes you really just want to steer clear of it, and you want to shoot the things that are going to control that or buff that.
Yeah.
Many a game I have lost getting into it with something I should have left alone to deal with something else.
Yep, 100%.
That's like real life for sure. Fuck.
Yeah,
right.
Every time.
Every time. No, but all right. So the Neuro-nids. These are some of the Neuro-nids that we got. The Neurogaunts and their terrifying kin, the Neurotyrants, Neurothropes, and Neurolictors, are a unique class of Tyranid organism designed to further the psychic dominion of the Hive Mind. These creatures are engineered to act as living extensions of the Hive Mind's far-reaching will, utilizing their psychic abilities to control and amplify the synaptic web that binds the Tyranid swarms together. Neurogaunts are the most basic of this brood, serving as conduits for the Hive Mind's influence, but the more advanced variants, such as Neurotyrants and Neurothropes, act as powerful psychic hubs, directing the flow of psychic energy, providing a focal point to the Hive Mind's vast and all-encompassing reach. Their presence in any Tyranid swarm is essentially for maintaining the cohesion of the swarm, ensuring every creature moves as one without hesitation. The abilities of the Neuro-nids are as varied as they are devastating. Neurogaunts act as psychic barriers, amplifying the influence of the synapse creatures and enhancing the Hive Mind's mind control over lesser organisms. Neurotyrants, on the other hand, possess immense psychic powers that allow them to warp the very fabric of reality, manipulating minds and controlling actions of both enemies and allies alike. Neurothropes are even more specialized, with abilities that allow them to manipulate the flow of psychic energy, drawing upon the shadow of the warp to distort and suppress opposing psychic powers. Meanwhile, Neurolictors are stealthy predators, using psychic camouflage to become nearly invisible, striking from the shadows with deadly precision. Together, these creatures form a deadly and adaptive force capable of overwhelming the most powerful foes in the galaxy. That's interesting about the Neurolictors using psychic camouflage, because that's actually how they don't do it as much anymore, but that's how old Raven Guards used to be able to do it. It was Korax's psychic powers. If he just stays still, you can't see him, and that spread to his more. No, I'm not kidding. That spread to his
Jurassic Park, the whole thing.
No, like Raven Guard, that was their thing. They could just stand still, and you'd miss a 10-foot tall soldier because he's psychically shrouded from your view.
Sure.
So the Raven Guard.
I'm sorry, that's so goofy.
The Raven Guard fight me. Raven Guard assassins would go somewhere and they just stand there and wait, and no one would notice them until it was too late.
Grey Knights have a very similar
and
thing
they're just
too.
like, oh, really?
Yeah, make fun of the Grey Knights now, Court. I know you wanted to play them. Make fun of them now. Call them. Goofy.
I know.
Yeah.
Call them goofy.
They have a psychic power called the Shrouding that does that same thing where you get a +1 to your cover save or whatever. That kind of worked.
But did they just stand still?
No.
See,
I think they can move. Yes, yeah, which makes them better for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was talking all that good stuff a second ago. Then it's his army, and he's like, "Well, maybe it's kind of cool."
It's not my army yet.
You hear that?
But that can be said about all armies, though. It's not my army yet.
Yeah, like good point.
If I live to 400, you better believe I'm going to be playing Raven Guard. It's not my first choice. It's not even my 50th, but I'll get there eventually.
Wow. I feel so disrespected right now.
They're the eventually
Some
army.
shade
They're the
thrown at
eventually
Korax
army.
fans.
Okay, we're not the Cruise fans. I don't know why me is being so bullied like this.
It's because there's a lot of Cruise fans out there, and I don't think I can fight them all off. You maybe I could fight you off, but like 50 screaming lunatics about Cruise that just want to flay me, I don't think I stand a chance.
You know, it's fitting you don't know about the other Raven Guard fans in the Discord, because in true Raven Guard fashion, they're staying out of sight till needed. So hopefully they'll hear this and they'll jump in and help.
They're here right now. We just can't see them because they're not moving.
Yeah, they're in the room with you, bro.
Yeah. They're behind Court.
Yeah, they're hiding behind Court's Hulk thing.
I know. I need to get rid of it.
I think you should move it closer every episode until it's like right behind you. But all right. The ultimate purpose of the Neuro-nids is to serve the Hive Mind's insatiable hunger for expansion and control. They are the psychic enforcers of the Tyranid swarms, ensuring that each swarm moves as a singular, unyielding organism, devoid of disunity or hesitation. By amplifying the psychic power of the Hive Mind, they ensure seamless coordination of the Tyranid forces, allowing them to overrun planets, crush resistance, consume everything in their path. With each terrible battle, they gather more knowledge and psychic power, extending the reach of the Hive Mind even further. As the Tyranids grow even more efficient in their predation and consumption, through their influence, the Tyranid fleets are united in purpose, bound by a singular desire to consume all and leave nothing in their wake.
Yeah, very cool. So there's a very brief overview of the Neuro-nids before we get into actual individual units. But before we do that, I want you to think about a couple features of these Neuro-nids as we're kind of reading through them. One, and the obvious one, is they all have a stronger connection to the Hive Mind, and that's because they themselves are typically now synapse creatures, or they're like synapse creature extenders, where they still need a synapse creature, but then they can kind of extend that signal of that creature. So that's the one kind of factor we always want to think about. Another one is these guys seem to have a higher shadow in the warp power. I don't know what you'd call it necessarily. Effect. But basically, yeah, there are a bunch of these that, like, if you get even close to them, that shadow in the warp is just super prominent. There's a couple other powers too that they have in here, but I think those are the two big ones to kind of look out for and pay attention to. But look out for other ones too as we read through them.
What's cool too is that earlier we kind of made the funny distinction of like the big thing versus like the smaller brainy bug, but there's a lot of Neuro-nids that are fucking massive and that are like, I know you're gonna cover this, Mark, but it's just, I think it's neat that they don't just distinguish like, oh, these are the brainy bugs and no, these are the fighty bugs. Like, no, these things will fucking tear you up as well.
Yeah. Like the Neuro-nids aren't necessarily, like you said, they're not necessarily all categorized as like, these all shoot laser bolts at you, psychic laser bolts. Like, they still are Tyranids at their core and will rip you apart with their claws and their speed and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's funny you say that, Court, about the bigger Neurogants or the Neuro-nids, because the Neurogants are the smallest of the Termagant models. Like, they are just tiny.
Yes. Yeah, there are definitely some that are like, that's the nerd-nid, if you will. But there are some where it's like, that's the Chad-nid.
Yeah. The first one we'll talk about is the Norn Emissary, and that definitely is the Chad-nid for sure.
Oh, yeah.
This guy, like I said, the Neuro-nid category is something I kind of came up with. Maybe it is an official kind of category, but not really. There's not like a lexicanum page on Neuro-nids, So when we're talking about the Norn Emissary, I kind of don't know if I classify it as a Neuro-nid, even though it did come out in 10th edition with Leviathan and all the other Neuro-nids. It actually existed in the lore many, many, many decades ago, and it just finally now got a model. So, it's hard to say if this guy's actually in this category, but we're going to put him in here anyways because he does fit. The Norn Emissary is a towering manifestation of Tyranid savagery, a relentless predator crafted by the living will of the Norn Queen. Each is designed with singular purpose and precision to hunt, infiltrate, and annihilate. Imbued with the psionic spore of their prey, these that's so crazy. These monstrous organisms are dispatched as assassins, their every action dictated by the cold alien intelligence of the hive mind. Forged from the fusion of brute strength and psychic dominance, a Norn emissary exists to eliminate the gifted commanders and prized assets of the prey species. Before the slaughter begins, a Norn creed saturates the emissary with the distilled essence of knowledge it requires to fulfill its mission. It is a predatory insight that allows the emissary to penetrate fortified strongholds and ensnare cunning prey. When unleashed, the emissary becomes a haunting specter of death. Despite its size, it moves with predatory grace that seems unnatural, a flowing gait of eerie precision. It can contort its massive form, folding and compressing itself to bypass seemingly impenetrable barriers. Its alien physiology defying all logic as it closes on its target. Its speed explodes with serpentine fury. It strikes with impossible velocity, leaping vast distances to crash upon its prey, sword-like talons slicing through flesh and armor with mechanical efficiency. Few creatures can stand before its onslaught. Even the gene-forged Adeptus Custodes are torn apart as though they are mere chaff. The deadliness of the Norn emissary does not end with its physical prowess. Its psychic power is equally monstrous, an extension of the hive mind's predatory will. Tendrils of alien energy lash out with devastating precision, unleashing abilities such as the parasitic neuroparasite, an explosive neuroblast, and the piercing neural lance. Each psychic attack is another weapon in the relentless pursuit of conquest, a manifestation of the hive mind's unyielding, unending hunger. To face a Norn queen is to encounter a perfect predator, a being of unstoppable purpose engineered to claim dominance over the battlefield and drag the prey species one step closer to extinction. The Norn emissary is this kind of crazy beast. It's as big as a hive tyrant. It's kind of that equivalent, but then it's so much more. It's designed to hunt, infiltrate, and annihilate. We have other creatures like the lictor that we'll talk about that have a very similar kind of function, but like where the lictor utilizes stealth, the Norn emissary might utilize stealth tricks and all that kind of stuff. But then it unleashes the savage ferocity of a creature that size, where it can just then destroy anything that it kind of gets to.
I thought they were bigger than hive tyrants.
They might be. I honestly haven't seen one in person before.
The model's definitely bigger.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Like significantly? Is it more like Titan scale? Oh, not
Yeah.
Titan. Is it like Knight scale?
Yeah, so I'm looking at a couple pictures of it. The flying hive tyrant, when it's perched up on its tail with its wings spread out, is about as tall as a Norn emissary just standing there.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm seeing it side by side by a knight, and like it's almost as tall as a knight.
Yeah,
but
it's shorter than a demon primarch, but taller than the new dreadnoughts and the screamer killer model.
Yeah.
And
okay. Cool.
The Norn emissary is like 100 mil base, and the hive tyrants is 60. So I mean, it's bigger.
Yeah, that is quite a bit bigger, and it's just meant to destroy. Where the hive tyrant is meant to lead, it has the strategy. This is like a solo. Like you want something dead, you make one of these, and your problem's solved.
Yeah. So getting into some more of these, we got the Neurothrope. So the Neurothrope evolved from the Zoanthrope, their Zoanthrope kin. Neurothropes are apex organisms, refined instruments of psychic predation. The Neurothrope is a weapon of focused alien purpose, a psychic predator crafted to channel the immense power of the hive mind.
This is an interesting creature too. Before we go more into it, this also was an existing model and lore creature from before 10th edition. So it technically is not a Neuro-nid, but also at the same time it very much is. Or maybe it was kind of the very first teaser of a Neuro-nid. But when we read through it, it doesn't quite make sense that this would be kind of the teaser Neuro-nid. And we'll come back to that later once you kind of tell us about it.
They had old models too for this. Like this was originally a metal kit. I'm pretty sure for the.
I think you might be thinking just like their base model, the Zoanthrope.
The Zoanthropes, yeah. Oh, because the Neurothropes, like the captain, essentially, it's you can build that one of 3. I think, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So then, speaking of Zoanthropes, these abominations bear grotesquely withered bodies and spindly, almost vestigial limbs that seem incapable of supporting their own existence. So very T-Rex, kind of just, let me use my strong hand.
Oh, I was thinking that too. That's so funny. Yeah, for sure. Scary movie. Funny shit.
Yep. Their oversized, bloated craniums engorged with pulsating veins of psychic energy. Yet Zoanthropes defy such physical constraints, levitating above the battlefield in eerie defiance of gravity, their atrophied forms animated entirely by the raw psychic power of the hive mind. I always had that picture, like, because the model kind of goes that way. But I guess I never really figured out that it's just kind of this psychic energy and power that's moving them, and they're just kind of this little strong hand kind of thing. But it's the strength of their psychic power. It's crazy that moves them. So this genetic enhancement has sharpened their psychic potency, making them even deadlier weapons in the Tyranid arsenal. Zoanthropes' very existence are a testament to the hive mind's relentless ingenuity. Their presence on the battlefield is an omen of destruction, as they channel their immense psychic power to crush the minds of their enemies. So cool. I played these guys. I had them on the table. I thought it was just such a cool model kit too.
Yeah, for sure. So so unique too, and like that alien feel that we've talked about, where it's just like that just doesn't seem right.
Mm-hmm. So then the Neurothropes, born to serve as both synaptic conduits and psychic artillery, these creatures relay the will of the hive mind to lesser organisms and unleash devastating psionic barrages during planetary invasions. Every aspect of their design reflects the relentless hunger and lethal efficiency of Tyranid evolution. Beneath their seemingly fragile forms lies a terrible strength. Neurothropes are surrounded by a ceaseless psychic barrier, an impenetrable shield of raw energy that wards off harm while they rain destruction upon their prey. Their psionic power is a force of annihilation, capable of obliterating tanks, melting through adamantium with ease, and toppling the mighty titans of their prey species. Yet their immense energy reserves are a double-edged sword. Neurothropes have been observed burning out mid-battle, consumed by the same overwhelming forces that make them so devastating. I think there was when you roll for these, because I think on the table, if I remember, again, I played these very early on in 10th and then just got suckered into doing Necrons in a good way. But they have really cool shooting abilities, but I think you can overcharge and then do a hazard roll for them, if I remember correctly.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's how they did most psychic powers in this edition. Instead of being a different roll, it's a hazardous weapon that will kill you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so cool. I think that's kind of neat here, just it being reflected that they could burn out mid-battle, basically. So these alpha predators are parasitic in nature, siphoning the life force of their enemies to fuel their attacks. This vampiric ability not only sustains their unrelenting onslaught, but also serves to mend nearby Zoanthropes, stabilizing the flow of psychic energy and preventing catastrophic overloads. To encounter a neurothrope is to face the hive mind's raw psychic fury distilled into a single alien entity. Fragile in appearance, but unyielding in function, these creatures epitomize the relentless and predatory nature of the Tyranid swarm. They are the Neuro-nids with rad power, for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Just able to focus and blast you apart, but then they channel too much, and then they create this chain effect of Zoanthropes and Neurothropes exploding and popping.
My first, I think I told the story before, but my first game of 40k in 6th edition was against Tyranids, and he had 3 Neurothropes. And he rolled Perils of the Warp on the one in the middle, and it blew up and caused a backlash that killed the other ones, which meant the entire Tyranid army was out of synapse for the whole game, and I was able just to sweep. I was like, oh, this game's easy.
I love this game.
Oh, yeah. Then I didn't win another game for 4 years. So I'm not even kidding. I went 4 years in the hobby with nothing but L's.
Rip. Yeah.
There's some really cool art for this too. Like if you look at Zoanthrope art, when they redid when they did the commander decks for Magic the Gathering, Universes Beyond, there's a really cool art for that where Zoanthrope's like shooting out psychic lightning energy at unfortunately it looks like a Necron. Damn it. Yeah.
I might have used that for the art for this episode actually.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, there's another one too that's similar, and it's a Zoanthrope shooting it at what appears to be maybe like a tech priest or something like that, and just like fucking melting it. It's so metal. It's so cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so the Neurothropes are kind of interesting because, like I said, they've existed before all these other Neuro creatures, and they seemed like just an upgraded unit. You know, like you said, you kind of described them as that sergeant type unit, where everything else kind of has a different flavor to it. And as we read through all the other Neuro guys, maybe you guys will pick up on like the different flavoring of their effects and stuff that don't quite translate the same into the Neurothrope.
Also, go look at a poster for Alien 3 and tell me this wasn't the idea that they had for creating Zoanthropes and Neurothropes. I mean, it's spot on.
Yeah.
It's like the alien queen embryo kind of thing, like the chest burster thing. But like you look at that, you're like, oh, that's a fucking Neurothrope.
The fucking poster. 3 times the suspense. 3 times the danger. 3 times the terror. Alien 3. What a fucking poster.
I didn't know that this image, because I've seen this image a lot. I didn't know it was specifically tied to Alien 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's, I mean, spoilers, but there's a queen alien that's in Lieutenant Ripley. That in one of the versions actually bursts out of her, and the other one she just sacrifices herself. But yeah, that's the alien queen embryo. Nerd.
We are. The nerds on the Warhammer podcast. You guys are nerds.
Could you imagine? Okay. You turn on a podcast about Warhammer 40k, and lo and behold, there's fucking nerds in there.
Yeah. What?
What are the chances?
It would be really funny if all of us are just shredded and don't consider Warhammer nerdy at all. We're just like, it's a deep and complicated lore. And then when someone brings up something else, we're like, ew, nerd.
Nerd supremacy over here.
Always and forever.
All right, so let's dive into the actual official Neuro-nid creatures here. And we'll start with the Neurotyrant.
Neurotyrant, which is a model I love. The Neurotyrant is an alien horror of impossible design, an apex bioform bred to serve the ultimate psychic weapon, the battlefield coordinator of the Tyranid swarm. Thanks, Liar. He called us nerds, chat. Suspended in eerie defiance of gravity, it hovers over the battlefield like a floating nightmare, its grotesquely swollen brain pulsating with an unnatural energy. Writhing tendrils snake and lash around it, each one alive with predatory intent, ready to tear into any prey foolish enough to come within reach. The Neurotyrant embodies the merciless will of the Hive Mind, amplifying the shadow in the warp to drown its victims in waves of psychic terror, liquefying their minds in a tide of relentless despair. It's kind of like what happens when people go mad looking at the warp. That's kind of cool. Its massive brain, exposed and throbbing with psychic power, serves as both a beacon and a weapon. The Neurotyrant focuses the mental energies of the Hive Mind, magnifying the crushing psychic weight of the shadow in the warp, while extending the synapse network to guide lesser Tyranid creatures with cold alien precision. acting as a living command center. It orchestrates the swarm's movements, ensuring that every skittering claw, every thrashing limb serves the hive mind's insatiable hunger. To witness a neurotyrant in battle is to behold the hive mind made manifest, a floating juggernaut of psychic devastation, its thrashing tendrils and pulsing brain heralding the collapse of its prey's will and the inexorable consumption that follows. And then there are some subtypes, it looks like. What is it? Neuroloid.
No, these are the little guys.
Oh,
these
yeah,
are
the little guy. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know they were called Neuroloid. Everyone always just calls them the little guys, so I just I didn't. Wait, yeah, the little guys.
His little two friends. His little friends.
The Neurotyrant does not fight alone. It is flanked by a smaller parasitic organism known as Neuroloids, which scuttle and hover in its wake. These lesser creatures act as extension of the Neurotyrant's psychic dominion, amplifying its control and ensuring the swarm remains an unstoppable tide. Together, they form a symbiotic predator, a relentless engine of coordination and destruction.
And then the next thing we have is a little relic that I found. So this isn't actually a Tyranid thing. This is an Imperium thing called the Cranium Obscuria.
Oh, cool. So the Cranium Obscuria is the pulverized segments of several neurotyrants' cranial spaces, which are Imperial relics, and they are contained within a heavily warded reliquary. That's cool.
So these are like okay, so they're the cranial carapaces. So they're like the skulls, pieces of the skulls of these neurotyrants, and they're kept within a reliquary of the Imperium. That's sick.
Could also be because they I'm looking at the picture of the Neurotyrant. The Neurotyrants do have this kind of crown thing going on above them too. So that's kind of what I'm picturing. Like they just have crushed pieces of that in there.
That's reliquary. Pretty sick.
Yeah. And they just use it for like warding essentially.
Oh, that's so sad. I just looking at the model, there's actually a Space Marine head at the bottom of the model with stuff spread over it being consumed by the Neurotyrant. That's super cool.
That's a sick model too. There's a lot of really cool kit bashes with it because of that crest thing. But someone on there's a picture, if you go on Google and type in like the Neuroloid, someone put googly eyes on it. It's fucking great.
That's a hate crime. Yeah, fuck.
It looks so funny.
I think it's an adaptation to distract the opponent to make it aww.
Why is it staring at me?
Why is it staring at me?
Speaking of opponent, I do remember, so I played Adam, a good buddy, and I remember thinking like, I played NIDS, so I should know how this works. And I was like, that thing, I don't remember why, because it was months and months ago, but like that was the thing I wanted to take out on the board first. I remember like, I need to get that gone. It's not the big scary things. I can deal with that. I can shoot it a little bit, a couple of turns, but like it was that the Neurotyrant. I was like, fuck that. Need that off. Need it off board now.
Fuck that.
Delete it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it just seems like this is an amped up version of just a synapse creature. Like this is like a solely synapse creature, essentially.
It's mostly brain. If you look at it, it's brain with teeth.
Yeah.
I also never realized it is kind of the biggest floating model that they have. That's super cool. And since we're talking about its appearance, harvested from Neurotyrant slain. Wait, I think that was part of the last thing. Oh yeah, this is okay. So the Cranium Obscura are kept in a solution of blood taken from an Imperial martyr. The very presence dismays the mind spirits of heathen sorcerers, also to ward away Xenos and heretic pervasively alike. That's kind of neat that it doesn't just do stuff with the Tyranids. It works on heretics and the other guys.
And as far as I'm aware, this is like a one-off relic. This is not like a common practice that the Imperium does of grinding these skull fragments. This seems like this happened on a very specific planet one time, and now it's a very useful relic.
Yeah, that's cool. Good find.
The next thing we'll talk about is that Neurolictor. And the Neurolictor is an apex predator engineered by the Hive Mind to weaponize terror itself. A psychic reimagining of the already lethal Lictor strain, sculpted through the Hive Mind's calculated evolution. The Neurolictor is more than a physical assassin. It is the harbinger of dread, its presence eroding the resolve of even the most stalwart foes. So before we learn more about the Neurolictor, let's dive back an evolution to the Lictor itself. The Lictor is a predatory nightmare unleashed by the Hive Mind, a Tyranid bioform engineered to stalk, infiltrate, and slaughter with clinical precision. Acting as the swarm's vanguard, the Lictor is an apex scout and assassin, prowling ahead of the Tyranid invasion to locate prey, relay vital intelligence, and sow terror in the hearts of enemies. Shrouded in the mantle of chromatic microscales, its chameleonic skin shifts effortlessly to match any environment, rendering it invisible to the naked eye. This adaptation, coupled with pheromone suppression, deformable organ clusters, and vibration dampening hoof structures. I love that kind of technology. That's quite the evolution to get vibration dampening hoof structures. Maybe the Tau will work on that too at one point.
Get on it, Tau.
Hard. Get on it, Tau. Do your stealth suits have that? No? Get after
I'm
it.
picturing them capturing these things now and like taking the feet off and putting them on the bottom of battle suits to give it more stealth.
Well, they allow the Lictor to pass undetected even in the densest, most hostile terrain. It moves with predatory silence, exuding an aura of inevitability that eludes all but the most advanced detection methods. The Lictor's capacity for stealth is so refined that it can remain motionless for days, blending seamlessly into the surroundings until a perfect moment to strike. Unlike the relentless aggression of other Tyranid forms, the Lictor is an opportunistic hunter. It calculates, observes, and waits, exploiting its advanced sensory organs to track prey long before its presence is detected. Its large, hunched form stands taller than a space marine, yet it remains unnervingly agile and fast, able to outmaneuver almost any foe. When the Lictor strikes, it does so with terrifying efficiency, emerging from the shadows to dismember its targets with mantis-like claws, scything talons, and flesh hooks. Its feeder tendrils, tipped with razor-sharp bone plates, piercing skulls and lobotomizing victims, allowing the creature to devour their brains. By consuming the neural matter, the Lictor absorbs memories, learning the locations of enemy forces and any exploitable weaknesses, feeding this intelligence back to the Hive Mind. The Lictor is not merely a singular predator, it is a collective conscious reincarnated countless times. Each new Lictor inherits the memories and experiences of all those that came before it, ensuring that the Hive Mind's adaptation is ever evolving. This symbiosis makes the Lictor an immortal presence, reproduced endlessly and perfected for its grim role.
I had no idea about that. So this is one of my favorite models in the line, but it's very much like the Swarm Lord, where it gets reincarnated. It learns the memories, all that stuff. Everything gets like downloaded back to it. That's sick. That makes this thing way cooler.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. They have probably, of all the Tyranid units, Lictors are like the most named characters. Like they have the Death Leaper, they have the Red Mist, they have a bunch of named ones, and this is why, because they are one creature, just rebirth.
Yeah, they've definitely lend themselves to, like, if you want to write a horror story that's very alien-esque, like use a Lictor as the thing that's hunting you or something. And I think, Mark, if I remember correctly, you guys did Lorehammer like horror stories back in the day, like short stories, I think, something like that. And I remember, I think someone wrote in one that it was like a guardsman that was being hunted by like a Lictor or something like that. And it was really good. It was pretty solid.
Cool. Yeah, like you said, man, it's like the ultimate horror beast. It can camouflage. It's waiting perfectly still for days, just watching you with its like never blinking eyes. Like, yikes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, because chat started to mention it too, but there's a lot of footage on YouTube of people playing Space Marine 2 and walking into what looks like an open spot. Then suddenly there's a lictor on top of you.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah, you
shit.
just like there's a lot. It happened to me and my buddies who were playing, and we walked into a thing, and I was like, "This is a weirdly open thing." And then I just hear Marco start screaming because a lictor's jumped on him, and we turn around like, "Where did that come from?"
Oh, that's awesome. I love
That's
it.
so funny. There's a little mantis, prairie mantis outside my house that I've been watching on a plant for the last like week. And it's so cool with its arms. I haven't seen it kill anything yet, but just the way it stands there, and then just doing this episode of just watching it remain motionless, just watching everything around it till it finally pounces. And when it does, you can't get out of it, man. You're trapped. The prairie mantis has a bunch of barbs on it, so when it grabs you, you're definitely not getting out. You're kind of caught in it, and very much the same concept with this lictor, where once it kind of has you, it fucking has you.
Yeah.
There are
cool.
some that show up near my house or at my house, and if they're in a spot I don't want them and I need to move them, I'll take my knife and I'll start to like get it close to them so they'll scurry off. But I can feel it and I can hear the ting when they hit it, but I never see them move. They're just that fast. Ting,
Yeah.
ting. It's like,
how big are they where you're
that
at?
big?
Okay, like a 4-inch type,
Yeah,
under
yeah.
6 inches type thing.
The big ones are 4 inches, but usually they're 3 to 4 inches.
Cool. I'm hoping that the guy out front my place grows to that size too. Right now he's just like an inch big, but we'll see. I'm sure there's different breeds out there.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll turn into a full-on lictor. Hard to say, man. The Earth is a crazy place.
He's going to be infected with the warp energy from your podcast and become the first IRL lictor.
Lucky guy. The named character. We'll come up with a name for him. Right now we just call him Manny, which is pretty lame for a warp prairie mantis, but we'll come up with something better.
That's cool though, because my buddy Manny plays NIDS, so that worked out.
This was fated to be.
Yeah.
So despite the size and monstrous form, the lictor is deceptively fragile, a trait offset by its unmatched speed and cunning. It strikes from hiding with blinding ferocity, leaving its prey no time to react, and yet its purpose extends beyond simple slaughter. The lictor exudes a pheromone trail as it hunts, luring other Tyranids to the kill zone. The more concentrated the prey, the stronger the pheromone trail is, ensuring that even if the lictor is discovered and destroyed, the prey already is marked for annihilation by the swarm. The lictor is no simple beast. It is an embodiment of the Hive Mind's predatory intent, a shadow given form and purpose, a nightmare that heralds the unstoppable onslaught of the Tyranid swarm. So now, knowing what lictors are, let's jump back to our good old Neuro-lictor. And it is grotesque. So it's all that plus this. It's grotesquely developed neural organs throb with psychic energy, radiating waves of fear that bypass rational thought and strike directly at primal instincts. Those caught in its aura are overwhelmed by the atavistic terror. Let's do a Google search of what the fuck that word is. You ever heard that one before? It means relating to or characterized by reversion or something ancient and ancestral. Okay,
so like ancient terror. That's cool.
Sure. Would that be like fucking Cthulhu-esque? You know, lictors and Cthulhu are kind of very tentacly mouth similar.
It is very similar. Yeah, it's like a Cthulhu-esque monster with that like cephalopoid face. Very cool.
Their hardened will is reduced to quivering fragility as the Neuro-lictor prowls unseen. This psychic dread is not merely a weapon, but a prelude to annihilation, softening its prey for the slaughter to come. But fear is only one layer of the predatory arsenal. The Neuro-lictor possesses an insidious ability to cloud the senses of its enemy, cloaking itself in an almost supernatural invisibility. Its foes are rendered blind, deaf, and disoriented, unable to detect the creature's presence even as it closes in. This psychic obfuscation extends to the entire battlefield, leaving opponents fumbling in confusion, their defenses unraveling just as the main Tyranid swarm descends. A shadow of inevitable death, the Neuro-lictor does not simply hunt, it paralyzes and disorients, ensuring that resistance crumbles even before the larger Tyranid forces arrive to devour all. Relentless, unseen, and utterly alien, it is a living manifestation of the hive mind's predatory perfection.
It's a predator. I mean, the way they describe it is so cool, and it feels like if we're talking aliens, you got to have the predator, and this feels like the predator and aliens had a love child, which did not exist because that movie is fucking garbage. But I'm just saying, it feels very similar to what might have been.
Yeah, and this is one of the cool things that we see too here, where now we get another little thing where this guy pumps out this psychic dread, where like it seems like it's like a shadow of the warp enhanced, where it's just like even more so, where you're all of a sudden uncontrollably screaming, your friends bleeding from the eyes, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, truly a terrifying creature. You don't even know you're being hunted, but then you kind of know you're being hunted at the same time, even though there's no like sign that you're being hunted, other than you know you're being hunted.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh man, this episode in particular just gets me. I love it because it brings up, like, again, things like aliens, things like Predator, and it gives me all the fun, like, monstrous feels. I love it. Like, it reminds me of the scene in Predator when Billy, the guy's out there, and he's like, and Arnold's like, "Billy, what is it?" And he's like, "I don't know, but it ain't no man." Something like that. It's just, it's so cool. Like, the terror of this is rad. So continuing with the Neuro-nid vibe, the Neurogaunt. So these are, for those of you guys who don't recall what the Neurogaunt is right away, these are the little dudes in the Leviathan box. So they're the little, almost, I mean, they're probably bigger than a dog, but, you know, like dog-sized Tyranid. And speaking of fun movie monsters, if you Google Tremors 2 and look at what that monster is, I think in the movie they called Shriekers, but that is definitely the inspiration for what these are. I think when I saw this on the new model line when GW came out, I was like, oh, that totally reminds me of Tremors 2.
100%.
Shrieker. Yeah, it even has like the flap thing that comes up, and because they're blind, but they can see your heat with this like flappy thing that kind of shows their brain. So the Neurogaunt. Here we go. Neurogaunts are a sinister manifestation of the hive mind's insidious design, engineered to reinforce the unyielding synapse network and guard the vital bioforms that anchor its control. These gaunts are living conduits, their very existence sacrificed to serve the Tyranid swarm's vast predatory intelligence. Swarms of them ripple across the battlefields like an extension of the hive mind's will, chittering with malicious intent as they shield the larger, more critical synapse creatures from harm. So they are a form of gaunts, and the gaunt is a relentless manifestation of the hive mind's will, a swarm-born weapon designed for adaptability and overwhelming numbers. Though smaller and less physically imposing than many other Tyranid bioforms, the gaunt is no less deadly. Gaunts are fully mutable, with their forms endlessly altered by the hive mind to suit the specific needs of an invasion. Some are grown with venom sacs that drip toxic ichor, others with adrenal glands or adrenaline glands that push them into frenzied bursts of speed, and still others with wings that allow them to descend upon their prey from above. Bizarre bioweapon symbiotes such as the feared spike rifle are grafted onto the sinewy forms, turning even the most basic gaunt into a lethal extension of the hive mind's predation. And when we talk about, like, I mean, the spike rifle sounds like like an actual metal gun. It is not. It is very much a bioform that is shooting out littler bioforms. In battle, gaunts are the expendable front line, a seething ocean of clawed horrors unleashed in unimaginable numbers. They are not just a weapon, they are a strategy. Ooh, I love that line. I'm going to read that again because that just feels like Gaunts, the movie. They are not just a weapon, they are a strategy. During the initial stages of a Tyranid planetary invasion, billions of gaunts are deployed in relentless waves, creating a living tide that engulfs all in its path. They are not meant to retreat or survive, but to exhaust the enemy through sheer attrition. Their endless onslaught forces defenders to deplete their ammunition reserves and energy weapons, leaving them vulnerable to crushing advance of larger Tyranid organisms. Thank you, Jax Carnage. I appreciate your comment. Chills, Court, chills. I love it. It's giving me chills, man. Fuck. Oh, now I want to play Nids again. Gosh damn it. Like this. Fuck. I was like,
fuck those
Necrons. And then maybe I'll do Grey Knights. That'd be cool. And I'll get back to my like roots with Space Wolves. And now I'm like, fuck. Tyranids are so cool. It's just like, I grew up loving monster movies and stuff. And this just scratches that itch for sure.
Yeah, man.
I don't know if this influences your choice, but there are rumors that Space Wolves are going to get a refresh at the end of this edition.
Look, that would be cool if it's more creative than just Wolf something, because I'm so at some point maybe I will read you guys in another episode a response I wrote to Northern Exile, who's an amazing YouTuber, about Space Wolves, and I was like furiously writing this thing about like what happened to my beloved chapter. And anyways, yeah,
I want to read that rant. You got to come prepared with that next episode.
I will bring it up next episode. It's pretty good. Yeah. All right, some more Nids. Here we go. The Neurocyte. The Neurocytes are parasitic entities born of the Tyranid hive's insatiable hunger, latching into the backs of their thralls, the Neurogaunts. So if you look at the Neurogaunt model, it is not a singular entity. What's on the Neurogaunt is actually a neurocyte. So that thing that's kind of latched on to its brain, like on its back, that is a neurocyte. Rad. Very cool.
Yeah, cool.
So these symbiotic creatures act as what do you got, Mark?
No, keep reading. It's all good.
Okay, cool. Yep. These symbiotic creatures act as relentless conduits of the hive mind's will, amplifying and extending the psychic influence of nearby synapse creatures. The neurogaunts, little more than expendable biomass, serve as both shield and vessel for the neurocyte's predatory purpose, ensuring that the hive's dominion stretches ever further across the battlefield. Very cool.
It's a very cool little biomorph that they kind of have that you could kind of then extrapolate, like, where else could you stick this biomorph? Like, toss one of these on the back of a Carnifex, perhaps? Ooh, interesting. Now you got a Carnifex with the Hive Mind kind of built into it, so...
Yeah, very cool. Cool concept. That's like, because we always kind of talk about the bioweapons of the Tyranids, and we know that they shoot like little forms, but like to have a parasitic thing on a Tyranid seems really cool itself.
Yeah, they have a couple other variations, or not variations, but other kind of stuff like that are not weapons. Like they have the adrenal gland biomorph, which is like another little creature that you stick on the back, and it just produces adrenaline and pumps the Nid full of adrenaline.
Yeah,
they got a couple cool little upgrades like that now.
Yeah.
Well, that's all of the official Neuro-nids. Now we have one honorable mention called the Malceptor, and I think we recently just talked about it, so there's no need to talk about it too much more. But basically, it is a psychic Carnifex, where it's the size of a Carnifex. It's built like a battering ram, but it also has a psychic blast that it's going to shoot at you and all that kind of fun stuff. Just a psychic powerhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool model. It's big and tanky.
Yeah, with the brain exposed. One of my favorite models of the Tyranids, actually. I love it.
I don't think I see it a lot on the table, though.
It's a rare kit. I think it's online only from GW. And so like it's hard to find locally in stores unless you're like ordering it online, then getting it sent to one of the Warhammer stores. But I'm pretty sure that's why.
It's not popular enough, so they just don't stock it type thing.
I was going to say there's a couple local stores that just popped up that have it. No, it's not. Oh, yeah, but it is an online only one.
No, it's online only.
Well,
Gotcha.
there's one at a store in Phoenix. I'm looking at it. It says it's in stock there. So
Is it Old World?
It is not Old World.
Is it Old World?
It is not Old World.
Well, if you go on GW's website, it says online only. Online only.
It's okay, Corey.
Yeah. And we don't argue with GW.
No.
Not once have we ever done that.
It's their IP. They can do whatever they want with it.
So the last little part, I'm going to just quickly summarize. I have 4 paragraphs written, but let's just condense that down so we can get to some call-ins. I dropped a link in the chat, so if you want to call in and talk about Neuro-nids, that link is now there. The last little part I had was just spreading across the fleet, and I think we kind of got the concept of the hive mind and how it's connected back to everything else, and how the Tyranid fleet, like, while it is made up of many organisms, it is still one organism, essentially. So once that knowledge is out there, it's out there and across all the fleets.
Collective and singular.
Melded in perfect harmony. I really like the Neuro-nids. You know, there's many conversations that we've had where it's just like, why not make it so all Tyranids are like able to access the hive mind? Like, and then, you know, people are like, well, maybe it costs more time, or maybe it's a waste of resources, or whatever the case may be. There's a couple good answers like that. But the hive mind has learned now that we know to shoot the big ones first. We know to shoot those synapse creatures. So then you still need to have synapse creatures. So how do you do that? Well, you make everything a synapse creature. And eventually, you know, maybe they'll stop shooting the big ones, and then you can put them back to being the synapse creatures. Or you know, there's a couple here like the Norn Queen or the the Norn Emissary or the Neurolictor, where it's like you have these Vanguard Tyranid almost, or these Soul Infiltrators, where now they have access to the hive mind, which can be just as fucking dangerous. And like, once again, it's that information relay where that Neurolictor is just eating the commander's brain and transferred now the command codes to the hive fleet. And now, you know, on the other side of the planet, a Tyranid has now unlocked a door somewhere, whatever that may look like.
It's terrifying. It's so cool.
Yeah, so the Neuro-nids are interesting. Like, and now we also have, like, we were talking about that neurosite, the where it's basically like an upgrade biomorph. Where, yeah, now let's make some psychic fucking carnifexes, or some psychic, I don't know, name another cool unit that's not already like that. It just opens up this like whole new wave of psychic ability to counteract some of the big downfalls of Tyranids, where, yeah, you just shoot the big ones and then you might be able to mop up the little guys afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's less, Logan, you can definitely speak to this because you've played more editions of 40K, but now it's not as damning when you take one of those out. Like, it still sucks a little bit, but it's not like a linchpin in the full army table, right?
In the games that I played, it feels like it's more of like, oh no, I have to take a morale test now. Where in other editions, it's like, oh, it might not do what you want. Yeah, it might not charge.
Yeah, I'm not charging.
You might not get to play this game. Where now it's like, oh, woo. And that's one thing I really don't like about 10th edition is they took a lot of rules that have been long standing and super cool. Like, and they show no fear, synapse, and if I sit here I'll think of more, but it's like, oh, this was a super cool army defining rule, and now it's like it's a footnote of the army, and I don't like that about it, but I get why it's moved in that direction. Yeah, the Shadow of the Warp is
but
cool,
the Shadow of the Warp's rad. We did talk about lore wise, but just to bring it in table context,
I wonder if his internet went out. Is it his turn for the internet to go out?
I'm back.
Logan, can you hear me at least?
Everything went dark for a second, and then I heard your voice, but I'm back now.
Okay, I think we're all back. A little hiccup.
I don't
with
see
the program there. Yeah, he's gone. Courthammer is just a dream that could never fully ever manifest.
The age of
and
Court
that's
Hammer
sad
is
for everyone
over.
involved.
Long live the age of Logan Hammer.
No. Well, let's get to it, Collins. We have Fuzz here, and I got some questions that we can walk through in some chats. So give me a nod, Fuzz. You're ready, it looks like. Hey, and welcome to the show.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me on. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound perfect.
Awesome, cool. I'm trying a new microphone, so I want to make sure it was working right.
Perfect. No, you're coming in crisp, worth however many dollars you spent on it. So
excellent.
So what's your off the top vibe of the Neuro-nids?
So, well, there's a few things. It definitely makes me think like back to one of my comments in the chat, even more so like getting through the actual Neuro-nids of like the Borg from Star Trek, where all of this like psychic force and adding all of these other Neuro-nids, new types of basically like bioprocessors, especially with like the neurogons, just because there's so many of them, increases just like the intelligence and calculating potential of the hive mind to allow it to do all of these new strategies, with like Hive Fleet, Grendyllus.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thought. I never really considered that. Like, yeah, the more you kind of link together, the smarter it might become. Because it's that stronger link. I'm kind of picturing it as like AI, where it's like the more NVIDIA graphic cards we stack together, the more powerful that AI is going to become. Kind of the same concept with the more Tyranid brains we stack together, the more smart it's going to become.
Exactly. I forget what you were reading that like made me think of that, but just like some of the words that GW had put out there that were just seemed like it was getting to that idea of like every world. Hey, looks like Court's back.
Holy shit, the Tyranids are fucking coming.
Though.
The power's out, guys. The fucking Tyranids are coming, and they disconnected everything because the shadow and the warp. We're fucked.
There's a shadow.
Once again, I was going to say, who's this we, Court? Because we are all in the radiant light of truth, and you're sitting alone in the dark there.
Oh, the lights are back on. Good.
Goodness.
Shit,
Fuzz,
there's
good
a
to see you.
neurolictor
Sorry to
behind him.
interrupt.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
No, that's definitely a fun little thought there of linking the more brains together, the more processing power the hive mind will have. Yeah. And now you're linking billions of gaunts together for that.
Yeah, and it's just like an exponential growth thing. Like every world they consume, they have more biomass and they can produce more Tyranids, which gives them more, more minds on the table, more, processing power.
Yeah. Very cool.
My
right,
other thought was like sorry.
No, go for it.
My other thought was, especially with the new Hive Fleet stuff, is it almost seems like they're making the Tyranids like too powerful in the lore. Like they are kind of losing any limiting factor that like the other factions have. Like, the Imperium is just stretched too thin. There's not too many Eldar. The tower too new, and they can't travel as fast. Votan don't want to take over anything. Chaos is just chaos and can't, has a hard time getting its shit together. Whereas the Tyranids are organized. There's a fuck ton of them, and they're just getting stronger and smarter and better.
Yeah, like ultimately the galaxy could boil down into two factions and everything else is irrelevant. We got the Tyranids and we got the Necron. And like you said, like both of them just seem like these all powerful. Like how do you deal with Necron technology that literally changes reality around you and breaks the laws of physics? How do you deal with billions of gaunts that come down after, mind you, they've just fucked up your whole planet by locking onto its gravity waves? Like how? Yeah.
It's cool to see, though. I think you're right, Fuzz. Like they've made this almost like an unstoppable, unkillable thing, and in some ways, because they're emotionless, like we talked about, they have character in some sense. There's some character vibe, but they don't have a big personality, so you can make them the big bad that things can unite behind. like we talked about with the solar blades.
Mhm.
You have a uniting force that can go against something that is horrific and not personal. I think that's what makes it cool, is that it's impersonal, and it's the big bad kind of.
Yeah, I wonder if they're doing that, like kind of like the growing strength of the Tyranids is a precursor to some other big story change that they have planned down the road to be that counter, whether it's more alliances forming or something like that, or some technology that one faction comes up with. Like if this is leading to some other like a
I think
big
it's
turn.
leading to another Primarch coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a filthy conversation. Maybe something better than talking about Primarchs is one thing that we've noticed with Tyranids. The galaxy is very xenophobic, and not just the Imperium. All aliens, all species in the galaxy are very xenophobic. But we have multiple times now where races are like, "Oh fuck, we should band together and try to stop the Tyranids." Now, like, we've had examples of Imperium and Orcs even allying because they're like, "Holy fuck, we can't fight this," and that's kind of a 40K is going on this interesting little path where they're trying to standardize it and make it a little less grimdark, more inviting to new people. And maybe doing this is one of the ways where you can have more alliances and less like everyone fighting everyone always at all times. There's no alliances, there's no friendship, because that's not very welcoming, Maybe this is a way they can kind of precursor that. I don't think it actually is, but that's just my kind of rambling thought.
I'm picturing a flow chart now, where you got the flow chart where it's like, if you're fighting Tyranids, then these things can align with if you're fighting Necrons, then these guys can align with each other, and it just goes that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that you're super far off, because I know in one of the RPG settings, like after the Great Rift appeared, it's kind of like along those same lines of it's demons and chaos is the big bad, and so like in the RPG setting, it's like you have your orc stats, all your Mechanicum, Imperium, Eldar. I think one of the supplements has Tau stats for like all the other factions to be able to fight in the setting against like chaos and demons. So like, yeah, I don't think you're super far off with that idea of, it being a little bit more inviting, but also I think it adds a lot of like flexibility to people who want to play story-based games. And maybe you want to, do a game with your friends, and maybe they play orcs and you play, Necrons or you whatever. So like allowing a little bit more of that like on the tabletop.
Yeah, a little less strict for
One
sure.
of
I'm all for narrative games. Logan knows this.
Court led a doubles tournament at Funk, and it was random assignments for partners, but you and your partner had to come up with lore on why your two factions were working together.
Oh, I love that.
It was cool.
That sounds
mandatory
so cool.
part of the event. It was super fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Tyranids make that all easier now because you're like, well, they fought Tyranids not too long ago and they kind of developed some sort of kinship, I guess, or whatever. Yeah. So I got some cool questions that we could ask here. I guess the first and biggest one is, why the fuck did the neurostrains happen? Like, what caused this to occur? Was this just the next natural thing to happen, or was this developed because of something specifically that happened?
I could see there being a couple narrative reasons for it, and maybe like again like two, like kind of at the same time. One of them being just the amount of like psychic and warp related enemies that they fight. With orcs, with humans, with Eldar, even like if they fight, fighting chaos. And then so there's more psychically attuned races than in the galaxy that they came from, and now they've absorbed enough psychically attuned biomatter that they have the resources to create their own more psychically attuned strains of Tyranids.
I'll buy that for sure. I think it's
Yeah,
the evolutionary process, and this just is the point where they are able to do it because maybe of those ingestion of the resources.
Sure. Okay.
And it makes for cooler models.
fucking makes a cool
True.
model. So do they have any weaknesses that we can think of that the Imperial or other factions can exploit? Like, we just keep going back to shoot the big ones first. That was the weakness for Tyranids, and now we don't have that. Is there anything else we can try to do?
Shoot the smart ones first.
Right? Yeah, at least the smart ones have big brains that'd be a lot easy for snipers to shoot, right?
Yeah, they're exposed for sure. Like look at the fucking Zoanthropes. Like half that head is just the brain exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think their biggest weakness, at least thinking from like the Imperium standpoint, would be like Sisters of Silence. If somehow like that pariah gene could be like worked either into like a bioweapon, like its own kind of bioweapon that like negates their psychic ability, or if they're able to like be able to engineer it to be more prevalent in humanity or in other species or something like that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Like that'd have to be such a crazy powerful weapon, like to cut through all the chaff and noise of the Tyranids to then be able to kind of like separate them off from the hive mind. But that's a cool concept. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing would be like some form of technology. Like I know like the Votan have some like psychically amplifying technology that they've developed. Maybe they could kind of reverse the polarity to some psychically dampening technology.
Sure. And then they kind of just go back into the stalemate kind of. Yeah. Okay. Like you got to do stuff. You got to come up with new technology for sure. It's not just like a simple new hack that we can come up with to defeat these guys.
Yeah, they definitely have to be. I mean, obviously, keep your strategies of kill the big ones, kill the dangerous ones, but definitely have to add more anti psyker strategy into there.
Yeah. Cool. We got a couple more questions, but I think we'll save them for Purge. Fuzz, do you got any other thoughts there before we let you go?
No, thanks again for having me on. I love talking to you guys. For anyone listening, join the Imperial Tithe, join the Discord. It's a lot of fun and absolutely worth it. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks, Fuzz.
Thanks, Fuzz. See you on the next one. All right. Purge, I can't see if you're ready, but I'm just going to throw you into the wolves and see what happens. Hey, welcome to the show.
I mean, that's this normal routine is, are you ready? All right, you're on.
You're on!
No more are you ready? Just put it
good
in.
then.
Yeah, at least I get like a second warning,
You'll do
or
fine.
maybe 5 at the most.
Cool. Well, I got some questions specifically for you and no one else. What do you think about the new Neuro-nids? Are they like a specialized tool for a more concentrated application of psychic suppression? Or are they a testing of what could be the new standard Tyranid? Like, did they deploy these guys specifically against Eldar now to really dampen their abilities? Or is this kind of just they deploy them against everyone?
I think it would start with a specific enemy, if we're going to go with the Eldar. But if it's fruitful, then it would get widespread. Because like I said before in the chat, I see the NIDS as an immunity response of the hive mind. So it would take each species and then develop a specific response to those species. And if it finds that that response works well with that species, well, let's see if it works against this other species. Well, if it doesn't work with that other species, well, then we need a different immune response to that species.
Yeah. And you think it's just kind of like a natural reaction, just like everything else. This isn't like this is just like a rule of the universe, essentially.
Yeah, especially
stuff comes up. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say if you look more into like the aliens, like comic books and all that, like they pretty much said that the aliens or the xenomorphs are a response to like uh, people becoming spacefaring races, and that's before you got into Prometheus and all that stuff. So if you take the whole David saga out of it, then yeah, whenever a species became spacefaring, the last challenge, or arguably the thing that kept them in check, then was the alien species. And I feel the NIDS are the same way. Where if you could go into any galaxy, it doesn't matter what galaxy it is. Like we only see the Milky Way galaxy, but let's say there's this other galaxy thousands and 10 million thousands of light years away, and all of a sudden there's this spacefaring species. Well, the NIDS are going to automatically respond to that and say, hey, we need to put you back in check, because if we allow you to become this spacefaring species, you're just going to bring devastation not only on your galaxy, but if we let you get beyond your galaxy, then you're going to wreak that havoc across the universe.
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I know my internet keeps cutting out because of the NIDS approaching and whatnot, and I just jumped in at the right time. But I love that idea. That sounds very cool. They're almost just like keeping everything in balance and in check, and it almost flips it to them being the good guys in that case.
I mean,
That's
kind of
very
like
cool.
Yeah.
PETA, or something like that. Like, are they really the good guys? I guess it depends on your worldview. Like, slaughtering entire species is not necessarily the good guys, but in the same retrospect, they're keeping
But they
everything in
eat
check.
every part of the species. They're like the Native American. It's fine.
Yeah, I suppose. But yeah, like I said,
Eat
that's how I view
every
the
part of the
NIDS.
planet.
They can't spread
Yeah.
their evil to
No, that's
other
definitely a
galaxies.
fun way to. It's definitely an interesting way to look at it for sure. Just kind of like a response antibody system. Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, do you consider an ant colony good or bad? You know, an ant colony is just gonna do what an ant colony is gonna do. Like, yeah, if it sees another ant colony, it's gonna wipe out that entire colony. Or, you know, if it sees it can devastate an ecosystem if put into the wrong ecosystem. But are they doing it out of any true sense of evil or good, or are they just doing it out of natural instincts?
I don't
Sure.
think
Yeah,
the NIDS
yeah.
are inherently evil. I think they just are what they are.
Yeah, like I said, just it's a natural thing for them. It's not like they're doing this like, oh, we're gonna go out here and be evil. It's like, no, this is just naturally what we are and naturally what we do. Like, it's there is no good or evil that you can apply to that. Like, we can see it as being evil or good because we're implying our own human viewpoint on it, but they're so alien that they're beyond any concept of good or evil.
Do they consider them evil though, or do
Sure.
they just consider them a threat? Because I don't think I've ever seen them be referred to as evil, just that they are a threat.
I probably most people would say a threat, but if you're staring in the face of one and it's about to rip you to shreds, you're gonna probably think it's a little more evil than just a threat.
What a beautiful evolutionary design this is as it rips you
Yeah.
apart.
Well, I'm picturing.
Not evil at all.
I don't know why, but my YouTube Shorts feed last night was just full of people being charged at by bears. I don't know why. That's just what it was. But
Naturally.
like the thought that the bear is evil never crossed into my mind. It was just, oh no, this is an apex predator that wants to eat this person. It's not evil. It's just being a predator.
Yeah, and I agree
Yeah.
with that. And like I said, that's how I feel the NIDS are. Is they're just, like you said, an apex predator, but at a universal level.
That's big.
Any other questions?
The only other one I had, which was kind of been answered a little bit, and that's what are the implication of Neuro-nids on the broader galactic war against the Tyranids? How do they challenge conventional anti-Tyranid strategies? And
Well, it's a brain bug. Well, a brain bug, but just put on a more smaller scale. And I think if you watch some of the Starship Troopers, like the animated ones, where they kind of became like they show them as gene stealers, but having a brain bug on a smaller scale is just a lot more dangerous. Like, yeah, you see this giant bug, okay, shoot all our weapons at it. Okay, now you have this tiny bug, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds of them on a planet. Well, now it's not as easy to wipe out their Neuralink or their main processing unit, if you want to put it that way. It's almost like taking something that's like a single processor and making it into a multi-processor.
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, terrifying. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't know what I'd do against them now. They come to your planet, they devour your whole planet in like 14 days, and that's that. Good luck.
You know what's more terrifying though?
Huh.
Being flayed by Conrad Cruz.
Kick him.
Get out of here. Kick him. Kick
Didn't
him.
even get a second, but you actually kicked
right.
him.
Out of here. Yeah, I guess the final thought I had for this podcast, and you guys can give your final thoughts, was I feel like this whole kind of Neuro-nid things, when you look at the grand picture of the fourth Tyrannic War, we have the two tendrils that their point was to go up, and then everything in between the two tendrils were to be blanked out. But also, like, I imagine the psychic connection between the two tendrils is pretty good. I feel like it's all about more isolation and reinforcing the Tyranids' kind of like connection to each other. So you get this huge kind of blank spot that's super sensitive for the Nids, and then you get this third fleet that kind of comes in and really takes advantage of all the shadow of the warp and all the extra connectivity-ness of it all, because it's in between these kind of two fleets, and then it slowly evolves into
I was going to say, I wonder if it makes them more efficient, the ones that are already there, when the neuro tendril is in the middle of them, if they become more efficient then.
Yeah, and maybe that's what happened. It kind of then branches out to those other ones where it really just reinforces everything.
Be interesting.
But that's kind of what I got out of this, like reading the fourth Tyrannic War. It's just kind of, that was the flow of it, where, yeah. But that's just my opinion. What are your guys' final thoughts on this Neuro-nid episode before we close it off?
I like the Neuro-nids. And since we talked about they kind of feel anger and they're thinking a little bit more, not a popular thing, but I would like to see a smarter Nid, one that can talk and negotiate about things. I think it would be cool from a story perspective. Add another layer of depth to it beyond just it just wants to consume. Maybe get a little bit more background with them. If one of them can talk to us, I think it'd be fun. I think this paves the way for it.
I like that idea in theory if we match it up with Independence Day. So we're really just fucking septa nerding at this point. But
no, that's not nerding. That's a manly movie.
movie.
Okay,
that is a national treasure, sir.
Welcome to Earth. Yeah. And then you get Chris Rock slapped by Will Smith by an alien. Anyway, in that movie, there's that scene where the scientist guy gets like is the cord wrapped around his neck, or like the tendril thing and whatnot, and Bill Pullman's like because they're psychically going into his head, very Tyranid-esque, right? And
yeah,
they do communicate. They communicated with him, and he's like, oh my god, I saw what they're planning to do, like, and they're just planning to kill everything, like that. If that's the communication that they have, I am fine with it. I don't want a fucking Tyranid that can shake a hand and be like, look, man, I'm glad we can come to terms on this battle. Maybe we should just end it for both of us. No. If this is going to communicate, like, and in that scene, he like chokes the dude and he's like controlling him, making him say like, release me and all that. That's cool. Yes, I will go with you to the very fires of Mount Doom, Logan, if that's what you're talking about. However, if you're talking about something that can negotiate and discuss and communicate openly with a space marine, good day to you, sir. I say good day.
Good day.
It's okay, Court. You could be wrong.
Ah!
I'm not above booting hosts as well, just so everyone's aware.
Is that why Court's been having trouble?
So
You've
good.
been trolling him this whole time, and you just keep
secretly you're just
yeah.
getting back.
You're like, you weren't funny enough this episode.
How does he keep him back in here?
Adios. Oh man.
Yeah. Like I definitely like you tap into the hive mind, and now all you feel is hunger and hatred. Oof, don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, despite what Logan says, I thought this was a fantastic episode. I learned, I laughed, and you know what? I got to boot somebody, which is always pleasurable for me.
This was a great episode.
Yeah. Nids are sweet, man. They were one of my first armies, but then again, man, you're in the hobby for as long as I have been, and every army is your army. So it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah. Fun. Very cool.
Cool. Very cool.
Jack
all right,
said,
end of the podcast.
yeah. I was going to say, Jack said, learned, laughed, licked her.
Yeah, that's a tagline. Oh, man. All right, well, we're closing this one off. Come check out me on Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. I will read your homebrew lore, and I will give you some feedback. It's usually very positive because all you guys are such great authors when you use ChatGPT. So keep sending me in your homebrew listener lore, and I'm going to keep reading it over on Lorehammer Listener Lore. Oh, and then we normally go to Funk, but he just dropped out again. So Court and Funkatronic Rex podcast. He normally spells it out too because of the tongue twisterness of it all. So Funkatronik Funkatronic Rex podcast. Go check it out. They talk about just like board games, tabletop stuff, just nerd shit.
Yeah, it's pretty fun to listen to.
Yeah, like if you like the nerding, if you like double nerding on Tundras, that's the show for you, I'd say. That's the sales pitch.
Yeah, it's everything and anything game related, nerd related. They'll talk about it. My shout out, if you guys want to come hang out with me more, see what I've got going on, check me out on YouTube at HydraThoughts. We've got conspiracies, cryptids, and religious mysteries coming, so come on in. Stay tuned.
Very cool. And we got a couple of new Patreon members this last following week or whatever. The Patreon grows. It's super cool to see, super encouraging. The money is a nice bonus to doing Lorehammer. I love talking 40K. I'll do it as much as I possibly can. But it definitely is like a nice little gauge for me to see like, oh, this is where we're kind of at. This is how we're doing. I don't like looking at podcast numbers. It freaks me the fuck out. But the Patreon, looking at a couple bucks, that's always nice. So this last couple times, X Lee, Poe, Bongo the Fool, David, and Tito MPG have joined the Patreon. So thank you so much all for joining. We really do appreciate it. So go check that out if you want to join. You get ad-free episodes. Well, Logan, since it's just me and you, I'll just say goodbye to you. Thanks for joining me on this Tyranid adventure.
Thanks for having me. It's fun as always.
Been a fun time, and we'll see you guys all on the next episode of Lorehammer. Adios.
Bye.